Jonathan in Arizona?
Sure.
Hey, Jonathan, how are you doing today?
Good. Hi, V. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Hi, Jonathan.
What you calling in about?
Yeah, so, actually, I called and talked to V and Eric a couple weeks ago under the same pretenses where V and I were having an email exchange. And coincidentally...
Hello, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Hello again.
Hi. Yeah. Coincidentally, I had sent Matt an email the other night, and he responded yesterday. And I was like, hey, what a great opportunity to not have to do the email thing and just talk.
Well, what can we help you with? Also,
yeah,
do you want to kind of summarize what the email was about first so that we've got everyone on the same page?
Some context. Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I had quoted Matt saying that you can't use the Bible to prove the Bible, and because you need to have independent attestation for it. So I was I sent the email specifically asking about the New Testament, that it's a compilation of independent attestations that just happens to be like in one book, and how it makes sense to say you need independent attestation of now what is a collective of independent attestations. So I was just like trying to understand the reasoning behind that.
Yeah, I remember this. And I also remember being incredibly pleased with my response and thinking that this would require no further discussion.
What was your response?
Yeah.
So the Bible the New Testament is a collection of different accounts. The problem is that, first of all, we don't know who the authors are for a lot of it. We don't have any way to investigate it. It was put together by biased sources. And instead of being a collection of independent affirmations of something, it is far closer to a collection of ghost stories told by different people. And so you can put together, the plural of anecdote is not data. And so you can put together as many claims about this particular ghost story as you'd like, and yet that isn't enough on its own to confirm anything. You would need independent verification of the facts, not just more people telling a story, especially if you have no way to investigate it.
And especially if it's been proven that they're building off of each other.
Right.
Well, I mean, you would kind of expect that from independent sources that are talking about the same story, wouldn't you? I mean, the example I gave as comparison was, it sounds like you could say the exact same thing in school reading a history book.
No.
A history book is a compilation of... I'm sorry, go ahead, Matt.
So do you believe that people are being abducted by aliens?
I really don't.
I don't either. And yet we have countless stories from people, and these stories are incredibly similar, including the descriptions of what the ships look like, including the descriptions of what the aliens look like. So there's a collection of independent attestations, and yet it is insufficient because the nature of the claim is such that we would require more. 100 people tell me that there's a new pet at the local pet store that's unlike anything I've ever seen. I'm going to go down and look for it. If they tell me they all got new dogs, I'm just going to take them at their word. But people tell me that they were abducted by aliens, or that they've seen ghosts, or that there's a man who turned water into wine, walked on water as if it were dry land, raised the dead, healed the sick, etc. Those things require investigation and evidence beyond just the claim. And so if you aren't willing to believe that people are being abducted by aliens, when you can actually go meet and talk to those people who made those claims, so you can get their firsthand accounts, how could you possibly believe a document thousands of years old that is a copy of a translation of a copy of an oral tradition by somebody you don't know and is so far removed from you temporally that you can't even investigate it?
Right, and then I'm not actually like trying to make an argument for the truth of the claims of the New Testament. I'm just looking for like consistency on comparing what you're saying to something that's, another historical event that has the exact same source material, but you're not saying it needs to be independently attested.
Well, usually when we talk about historical documents, we are talking about we need verification from non-biased sources. And so when somebody reports on a war that happened, if all of your information is coming from one side of that war, now all of a sudden all of their views are suspect. But if people on both sides of a war are reporting the same facts, where those facts overlap, now you have a good reason to think you are closer to the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not like the New Testament is a collection of biased and unbiased sources. And when you go outside of the New Testament, when you go to somebody like Josephus, who is an actual historian, albeit very early and perhaps not with the best methods, you don't have those independent, unbiased historians confirming the facts of the Bible. Even in the testimonium within Josephus's work, which is probably an interpolation because it probably didn't exist in the originals. But even if it were there, all it really attests to is that there are people who believe this happened. It's not testifying that this thing actually happened. And that would be me like writing a news story about flat earthers. And then in 2,000 years, there'll be people who go, wow, there were people who believed the earth was flat as late as 2019. And that's completely different from the earth is flat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some of that makes sense. Some of it, just to be honest, it doesn't seem to make sense because we're referring to Josephus saying, all he was saying is people at the time believed it. He does make specific claims, at least, the crucifixion of Jesus under Pilate and Jesus having a brother named James. I mean, those are specific. Those aren't just, hey, a bunch of people at the time believed it. Those are specific attestations of, certain claims of the New Testament.
No. These are not claims of fact. These are claims about what people believe. Josephus wasn't even alive when these things occurred.
Right. You can be extremely specific and still be wrong.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, I guess I do have to backtrack because Josephus was like beginning of the first century, if I'm not mistaken, beginning of the second century, something like that.
Something around 60, 75, I think, is when he was born. I might be wrong in the dates, but at best, he was talking to second or third hand sources, and he's reporting on what they believe to be true. He cannot report these things actually happened.
Right. And I guess in all fairness, in 100 years, nobody will be able to actually say that the Holocaust actually happened.
Well, except that we have documents from Holocaust survivors.
And we can go to concentration camps.
And people on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can, again, in 100 years, you could say, well, I don't know that those were actually written by the people who survived the Holocaust. I mean, you could be skeptical to the point where it's,
You could, but we are at a point where the documentation process is much stronger now than it is for something 2,000 years ago.
Right.
And so it becomes increasingly irrational to suggest that multiple reports from people on both sides of an issue can't get us to something close to a good understanding of what likely happened. Now, I don't think you can be absolutely certain about anything, let alone, historical claims. But you can be. What you can say is, in the 20th century, we have countless reports of a war. We have video footage, photographs, and we have accounts from people who claimed to be there, who survived that, who lost family members there. And so, yes, in 2,000 years, Holocaust denialism might be slightly more plausible than it is now, but what you're kind of overlooking is that as our ability to record and save information and make sure that it doesn't change over time, when you have digital recordings of things, and you can never prove absolutely that something hasn't been manipulated or that the masterminds at Google are secretly going in and changing all of this. But that is a claim that is itself extraordinary, and you would need to demonstrate the likelihood of that.
Right.
This is very different from, hey, we have this book, and it's a collection of writings, most of those writings, we have no idea who the author is. We know currently from the information, we have no originals. No original manuscripts at all, let alone who wrote them. And all of these were collected by believers, and they essentially held councils to vote on what was getting in and what wasn't. We don't tend to vote on what gets put into the history books.
Well, Texas does.
All right, that's the history textbooks that we give to kids. But it's like the Library of Congress is, if you write a book and you get an ISBN, it's going in.
Yeah.
hmm
Does that make sense?
I mean, what you're saying makes sense. Like, I understand everything you're saying. It's just there's variances in certain things that I either don't necessarily agree with, or I think are being misrepresented, and not purposely, I don't think.
Like what?
Saying, well, like the issue of the New Testament documents not having independent attestation of, like, say, those who didn't have a bias or didn't affirm it to be true, stuff like that. When, from what I've read, there's plenty of that, actually.
Wait,
Like,
where?
Well, I mean, the Jewish Talmud, first of all. I mean, they write about Jesus and not in a very flattering, light way. I mean, but they write about him and that he was a blasphemer. And I mean, that to me is probably the best attestation you could get, is someone who hates you and is still saying, at the very least, there are claims written about him that happen to be in the New Testament that are true.
That would be
that's just one of the things.
That would be a good point if you were arguing against a claim of mythicism. But it's not a good point if you were arguing for divinity, because the Talmud...
No, I'm not arguing... Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I'm not arguing for theism at all.
I just lost my headset.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Let me know when you're back.
Can you
Yeah,
hear?
I can hear. I can hear just fine. Okay, so I know, because we've had this conversation before as
back.
well, that you're not trying to argue for divinity yet. You're trying to establish a baseline of Jesus existed, and then we can go from there. Is that right?
No, that was definitely in the context of the conversation that you, Eric, and I had. This was just mainly on consistency of you need independent attestation for a book that is compiled of independent attestation. That's the part where I was getting hazy.
I guess my question for you then is that if you're not trying to argue for divinity and you're not arguing on behalf of theism, then why would you care? Why should we care?
Why would I care about what?
Whether or not we can use the Bible to prove the Bible.
Well, like, basically, it seems like there's if what I'm saying is right, and that's a big if, I'm sure. If you're saying you need independent attestation, but the compilation itself is the independent attestation, then there's got to be something else that you're actually meaning, and you're looking for something else to verify the validity of the independent attestation.
But I described that. What we're looking for is unbiased sources, and preferably sources that are in opposition. And so when you go to, like, the Talmud, and you look at the passages that some people would view as talking about Jesus, there's a lot of problems with them, because you've got Yeshua ben Pintera and a view that he was killed in almost the 2nd century CE. That clearly can't be talking about the same Jesus. So, but even if it was, even if the Talmud included, around this year, give or take a couple, there was a heretic who was killed at the hand of Pontius Pilate, etc. None of that gets to. Can you still hear me if I talk? Because my headset went out. There it is. None of that gets to whether or not these events occurred, the miraculous events, the things that might lead to divinity, and there were plenty of potential messiahs and plenty of people whose name was Yeshua, and to just argue that because there was a mention that this then affirms not only the existence of the particular one that you're talking about, that's a problem. You may be right, you may not. But none of that gets us any closer to whether or not this was not just an itinerant rabbi who was preaching heretical things, but whether or not this was the Son of God who died for our sins. And plus, I don't even think we need to go into potential evidence for that, because the notion is absurd in the first place.
So if there were more, like, say, archaeology discovers, in 100 years that there's a bunch of more, unbiased, opposition attestations for, Jesus, Yeshua, whatever. Couldn't we just say the same thing? Because you're saying, like, we need it to be unbiased. We need it from the opposition. That would give it more credibility. But even if we had that, couldn't you say the exact same thing? Well, we don't know that they're talking about that Yeshua.
Well, yeah, we would need them to talk about that Yeshua.
We need to be pretty specific. Here's the big question you need to ask, Jonathan.
Go ahead.
If there is a God, and the story about Jesus is true, where God essentially takes human form and comes down and sacrifices himself to serve as a loophole for rules that he created. And it is important for us now, 2,000 years later, to have an evidence-based, warranted belief in this in order to accept it. Then how could we ever be having discussions and debates with confusion about which Jesus we're talking about, or are we talking about Jesus, and we can't verify miracles? If there is a God, that God has utterly failed at understanding good standards of evidence, because there should be no debate. This has got to be, if this is all true, this has got to be the single most important thing in the entire history of the world. And it is not sufficiently attested to and backed up with evidence, and that has to be God's fault. What kind of idiot does this?
Yeah, and I see what you're saying, but there's, and again, you could be skeptical to the point of being like irrational, right? So, I mean, any level of evidence that should, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Skepticism is rational. Skepticism is not, I don't believe, I don't believe, I don't believe. Skepticism is a process by which we want our internal model of reality to match reality. And so we are not going to become convinced of things until the evidence warrants it. Skepticism is not cynicism. It's not debunking. It is not saying, no. It is impossible. It is impossible. It is impossible to be too skeptical.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Because skepticism is about testing to be as correct as possible. Can you be too correct?
No, I guess you can't be too correct.
There you go.
You can't have like too much evidence. But it's like, I could say I don't believe that my mother and my father are actually my mother and father, even though that's, to me, that's too skeptical. Like, I have no reason not to believe it.
That's not too skeptical.
DNA test.
You can deny whatever you want. You can be a Holocaust denier, but you can't say that you're doing it because you're skeptical.
Right, exactly.
You don't understand skepticism if you think that you can be too skeptical. And that's why I said, can you be too correct? Because that's what skepticism is. It is, let's use the best methods to avoid being wrong. Now, can you be wrong and still be skeptical? Absolutely. Because for some things, there may not ever be enough evidence to warrant it. I have no idea what happened before the Big Bang, or whether that sentence even makes sense.
Right, yeah.
But that's, my skepticism is, I'm going to believe it when the evidence warrants it, and not a moment before. Because if I believe it before the evidence warrants it, now I'm being unskeptical, I am being gullible, I am being irrational. And if I deny that something exists when there is sufficient evidence for it, that's also not skepticism.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So, like, being like a hard solipsist is not like skeptical, like of other people actually existing.
No, being a hard solipsist is asserting a position that you can't demonstrate, and that would not be consistent with skepticism. Being a soft solipsist is consistent with skepticism, because that's an acknowledgement that I cannot demonstrate that I'm not the only mind in the world.
Okay. I didn't know the distinction between those two.
Yeah.
Hard solipsism is nobody exists but me.
Which then is a claim that you cannot prove or disprove, and therefore it's illogical to hold it.
Yeah, essentially it's about falsifiability. I can't falsify the proposition there is no God. I can't falsify the proposition. Well, that's falsifiable by demonstrating that a God exists.
Right.
But I cannot demonstrate that it's not the case, that it is the case that I am in fact the only mind. There's no way to show that that's false.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, something that's like extremely well attested scientifically, or, you know, with the best methods that we have on determining what's more probable to be true. Like, pick something like how stars form, or, you know, something that's easy that we understand through physics and astronomy and stuff. For someone to actually be aware of all of this evidence and information and say, I'm still not convinced, that too is not being too skeptical when all of the evidence suggests that it's true?
No, they're not being too skeptical. They're being irrational.
The skepticism doesn't have anything to do with it. It just goes straight to irrationality.
Skepticism would say, when there's sufficient evidence, I will accept it. And you are describing a scenario where there is sufficient evidence, but someone won't accept it. That's not skepticism, that's cynicism.
Isn't that subjective, though, to the individual?
It's going to be up to you to determine what is going to convince you or not. But you can't claim that your standards of being convinced are objectively correct. That's something you'd need to demonstrate. For example, you could say, well, you could be the doubting Thomas thing. I'm not going to believe Jesus until he's standing in front of me and I see the nail holes in my hand, which, by the way, is not sufficient evidence to warrant belief in that.
Right.
But you could do something like that. Or you could say, I don't believe you have $100 in your wallet, and I open my wallet and show it to you, and you could say, I don't believe it still. Well, now you're not engaged in skepticism. You're engaged in denialism or cynicism. And you can sit there all day and be convinced that you're rational, but you're clearly not. This would be like saying, I don't believe this pen works, and then I write your name and say, read that to me, and you read it, and then you say, I still don't believe that pen works. That is what you're trying to describe as too skeptical, but that's not skepticism. Because skepticism...
But it sounds like you're describing proof rather than evidence, because evidence can be wrong. But proof is conclusive.
No. So first of all, proof is a mathematical term. What we're talking about in science is demonstrating something with sufficient evidence, but also every position we hold should be tentative, and our confidence in that position should be proportional to the evidence. Mathematics has proof. Proof in the colloquial sense is just give me a demonstration, and you're saying, oh, well, that's sufficient.
Right. I think the issue here is that we're working off of different terms, and Matt, you're kind of going off of the more technical terms of what skepticism is, what a proof is. And Jonathan, it sounds like you're using them how like normal everyday people would use the term proof or skepticism, but they're not the same thing. They're different concepts. Just like a theory in science is different than when I say I have a theory that Matt's gonna oversleep today. You know?
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that this is, again...
well, that raises an interest. How would you define theory, Jonathan?
So I have, when I think of the word theory, I think there's like three theories. There's unproven theories, disproven theories, and proven theories. So I kind of, when it comes to a theory is something like the theory of gravity, where the apple hits you in the head, and all of a sudden...
The thing is, once it becomes disproved, it's no longer a theory.
A theory in science is the highest thing that an idea, a hypothesis, can achieve.
Yeah, best describes like the event or whatever it is that's being investigated as the best model for it.
Yeah, a theory or model is essentially... There's an observation, and now granted, there isn't a scientific method. There are a bunch of scientific methods. But if you begin with an observation, you create a hypothesis, then you investigate and try to come up with evidence that affirms that hypothesis, and then you attempt to disprove that hypothesis. And then there's the whole thing surrounding peer review and independent investigation, because the truth has nothing to fear from inquiry. And so if it's true that Jesus is the Son of God, then we would expect, A, there would be evidence for it, unless there's some reason for God to hide that evidence, in which case he can't expect people to accept it if he's hiding the evidence. God is playing world hide-and-seek champion every year. But if God is not providing enough evidence, then the fault now rests with God. If there's just not enough evidence, then all you can say is, I am not convinced, and no reasonable person could be convinced.
And you're talking in general on a general claim, not like theism altogether. I mean, not just theism, right?
Any claim.
Yeah,
the claim doesn't matter. For different claims, there's different evidential standards. Like if somebody tells me, hey, I mentioned this earlier and many times in the past, hey, I just got a new puppy. Cool. I'm going to take you at your word, because I know that puppies exist and people have them as pets, and I know things about you and everything else. And I'm saying that knowing that I could in fact be wrong. But the consequences of me being wrong doesn't shake my worldview from an epistemological standpoint. It just means you are no longer trustworthy. Now, if you say, I just was abducted by aliens last night, now all of a sudden the nature of the claim has changed, and this type of evidence that we would expect for that should change as well. And so when you
Right.
say
Okay.
Jesus is divine and performed miracles and rose from the dead and wants you to stop having gay sex and do all the things that he wants in order for you to live in paradise forever, that's a collection of claims that's incredibly extraordinary and would need more evidence than stories of translations of stories by anonymous authors thousands of years ago.
Right. If Yeshua, this rabbi, was just one more of there were 36, something like that, different sects of Judaism that had broken off into cults of different apocalyptic natures around that same time period. If it was just one of those various cults, and you said, hey, this existed at this point in time, I'd be like, okay, sure, fine, I'll go with that, because it doesn't impact me or my worldview. But once you make the claim that it's supposed to impact me and my worldview, then I need more evidence than I would for other claims. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I think that way in my daily life as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I've been watching the atheist experience for 10 years, at least 10 years. My best friend is an atheist. I read books from atheist authors. I read books from Christian authors, apologists, stuff like that. Why? It is going to be maybe difficult for you to even attempt to answer, but how come I feel like I am being rational and coming to the conclusion that I believe the claims that are written about Jesus in the New Testament? I feel like I'm a rational person. I feel like I'm a critical thinker. I understand logic and reason. Why am I coming to an opposite conclusion?
Right. We demonstrated this earlier. You already said that you don't believe people are being abducted by aliens.
Right.
That means that you have one standard of evidence for the alien claim and a lesser standard of evidence for the Jesus claim. And the question you have to ask yourself is, why are you setting the bar so low for the Jesus claim and much higher for the alien abduction claim? It comes down to somewhere there's a hidden bias. Either it's fear of the consequences of being wrong. The consequences of being wrong about God are greater than the consequences of being wrong about alien abductions. Or maybe you have some hidden desires related to family members, as we discussed before, or an afterlife, or some preference for something that you're not willing to acknowledge yourself. But I would think that both of us would agree you have a lower standard of evidence for the Jesus claim than you do for the alien abduction claim.
I don't know. I don't know if I do or not. And even if I do, I don't know how I'd actually be able to determine that.
It's really easy. There are many claims about people being abducted, and you can go and talk to them firsthand and hear their account. And in many cases, you can go out and investigate things. They are closer to you temporally, in temporal proximity, in that maybe somebody thinks they got abducted by aliens in the last couple of years. You can talk to them, you can investigate, and you can look into this evidence, and yet I would bet that you don't, and you don't believe them. And yet, when it comes to the Jesus thing, you have sources that you cannot identify, cannot name, cannot talk to. You have no way to investigate these things. You are much farther removed from them in time, and the claim is vastly more extraordinary because the alien claim doesn't violate necessarily the physical laws in the universe. There's nothing supernatural about the notion that life might have come from somewhere else to here, that there might be advanced technology. So you are accepting a much more extraordinary claim based on worse evidence.
So to kind of be specific, I have specific reasons why I don't think that alien life is probable. I don't know. I'm not here saying I know God exists. I wouldn't do that because it's monumentally arrogant, I think. I have to believe it because the arguments that I have spent 10 years reading about and learning about, and the vast amount that I've learned from the show has just led me to the conclusion that in my mind, the way that I use my epistemology or whatever, it has led me to the belief that this is more probably true.
Take the last three sentences you said and replace any reference to God or religion with aliens or alien abductions. And why is it?
Well, that's not the same. It's not the same thing because I'm aware of evidence that makes alien life unlikely.
Okay,
So
what is that evidence? Because we know, no. Science shows that alien life is not only incredibly likely, but probable. Whether or not they come here, whether or not they have technology where they could come here and abduct people is a separate issue. But life outside of Earth is wholly unremarkable. Do you know how big the universe is? It's far more improbable that life only exists on this one little frickin' rock.
Okay, Jonathan.
I am.
Jonathan. Okay, so we are going to have to move on, I think, to some other callers. But I have some homework for you if you would like to call back. Make a list. Awesome, me too. Make a list of the reasons you don't accept alien abduction. And then make a list of, and then compare claims about Jesus' existence to that list.
And I want to finish the one, when you're done, I want to finish the one thought that kind of got sidetracked. Because when I said take the last three sentences and anywhere that references God or religion, substitute alien abduction, and you interrupted right away, and it's fine, I interrupt too, it's not a big deal. What I was going to say is, if you literally go back and type out what you said and change it so that it is three sentences about alien abductions, ask yourself, how is it, if someone who believes there were alien abductions said those three sentences to you, how would you reply? That's where I was going.
Mm-hmm. So do some thinking on that, maybe write out a little bit of a list, and call back next week, and we'll continue the conversation.
Okay, I will definitely give it a shot, and I don't want to promise that I can get back to you next week, but I will definitely call back again when I have a chance.
Awesome.
And I had a great time talking with you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for calling in. I think another thing to bring up is just that argumentum ad populum is the fallacy of assuming things are true because a large portion of the population agrees with you. I think that subconsciously that is an extremely important thing that people grab onto. If we lived in a society that was built around the acceptance of aliens, it would be a lot more likely that you also accepted that aliens existed.
That is a brilliant point.
Right? So, if you are living in this society, whether or not you think you have individual personal biases, you are biased just by default because of the way our society is set up and because of the number of people who are theists in the society.
Yeah, skepticism is about doing whatever you can to remove as much of your personal bias as possible. You're never going to be a perfect thinker, a perfect skeptic. You're not going to get rid of all your biases, but doing everything you can to figure out what those are. And if you have a different standard of evidence, a lower standard of evidence for something that is obviously more extraordinary, you got to ask why.
Exactly.
And maybe what V was pointing out about the popularity of this, that might be the biggest thing.
Yeah, ask yourself, am I believing this because other people also believe this thing? That kind of was a big part of my deconversion.
Well, let's take our next call from Juan in Los Angeles, California. You're on with Jamie and Matt. How are you doing?
Hi, Jimmy and Matt. I'm well. Thank you for asking. How are you guys?
I'm marvelous. It says here that you want to help Matt find his faith again.
Yeah. So
why would I want to do that?
Can you help me find mine too, or?
Yeah, definitely.
Not to make it about me. Sorry, what were you saying?
I'd like to help anybody, the whole community, if I could. I'm a young kid. I'm 23 years old. I first started kind of my whole relationship with God when I was 16, and it's been such a huge off and on thing. My dad is a huge skeptic, atheist. I think he shares the same belief that you guys do, and if I'm correct, it's the belief where because you guys don't know that there's anything out there, therefore you guys say it's nothing. Is that kind of correct?
It's close, but not quite. So when people are just talking colloquially about like, oh yeah, no, there's no way that happened, it's casual, and they're not trying to be as precise as is pretty much necessary when you're debating the existence of God. So it's because, well, I can speak for myself, and I'm pretty sure I know Matt's answer, which is I don't have sufficient evidence or reason to believe in a God. Therefore, I don't hold the belief that the claim there is a God is true. So I don't believe that. However, I also don't, I'm not in a position to say, oh, definitively there is nothing that could be described as a God. However, I have no reason to ponder what it would do. So,
and I'm convinced that. So one of the things, there are arguments against the existence of particular gods. My favorite, of course, being the problem of divine hiddenness, which is we live in a world where there is not evidence for the proposition God exists, which is what you would expect if in fact a God existed. And so that works to counter it. But yes, I'm making no definitive declaration. I'm not claiming absolute certainty. I don't believe there's a God. I don't believe there's anything supernatural, but I'm willing to believe those things if somebody can actually present evidence.
Okay. Well, I do want to share, I guess, my standpoint. First of all, I'm a Christian, but I'm not any kind of denominational Christian. I believe it's called non-denominational. All I really have in my life is a relationship with Jesus, and that's it. I go based off the Bible. I don't, cling to any rules or anything of that sort. I just do my best to have my relationship with God, which I believe is Jesus. And so that was
that's a weird way to phrase things.
I was going to say, can you be specific about, well, if you just a little bit of clarity, tell me about Jesus.
Well,
a little bit, like,
that's the same thing I want, but I want to point out the thing in what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Because you said that you focus on your relationship with Jesus, who you believe is God. Now,
yes.
If I ever said, I focus on my relationship with Beth, who I believe is my wife, doesn't that sound like a really strange way to phrase things? Like if I had a relationship with Jesus, you would think that I would know that he was God and that this would be something that would be easy to demonstrate. So I'm curious about how you can how do you know that you have a relationship with anybody that you identify as Jesus?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I might have phrased that wrong. The reason why I say I believe that is because I know there's many beliefs out there, and a lot of people don't believe Jesus is God. For example, Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't believe that. They just believe Jesus was a prophet. And so what I mean is I personally believe that Jesus is God. That's the way I phrased it like that. That's
why do you believe there's a Jesus in the first place? We need to know about the nature of this relationship, I guess, because while I was a believer for many years and would have said things like, I have a relationship with Jesus, I've since learned that was not true. So I need to know, what is this relationship and how do you know you have it?
So my relationship with Jesus is based off of the standpoint of taking the Bible as a piece of true and historic literature, meaning that it was written down by people who actually lived there at one point.
Okay. You don't think that... It seems to me you're saying you begin with the Bible is true, right?
Yes, I believe the Bible is true in the Word.
Yeah, but if you begin with that, of course you're going to believe in God and Jesus. The question, all you've done is push the question off. You're just saying, I believe because I believe the Bible is true. But do you have any good reason to believe that the Bible is true, or is that just your starting point?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, first I read the Bible, and then the things that are in it. The Bible says that it's living and active, which means.
Sorry to interrupt. I am doing that because I think I do that more than Matt. But Matt's question was, why do you start with the Bible? And it sounds like your answer began with, so I start with the Bible. Or do you mean I read the Bible to test whether it's true?
Because I believe that that's where you find Jesus. I believe that's where you find God.
Okay, I believe that's where you find Jesus too. I just don't believe that Jesus is real, and I don't believe the book that's leading you to that. It's like saying, I have a personal relationship with Harry Potter, and I began with the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think there's been anyone in history who's ever said, I've seen Harry Potter in real life.
First of all, that's irrelevant. The number of people who believe something or have professed this belief or written about this belief is irrelevant to whether or not it's true. But I can guarantee you that there's somebody out there who thinks that they have a personal relationship with Harry Potter.
And that fan fiction
Can I ask you, can I ask you then, how do you personally believe that anyone in the past is real? For example, maybe you have a great-great-grandfather. How would you believe that he's real?
Evidence, birth certificates, et cetera, stuff like that that show that somebody existed. But here's the thing. I'm not concerned with whether or not somebody actually existed, and I'm fine with the notion that there may have been a Jesus, but that doesn't necessarily tell me anything about whether or not he had magic powers.
And I'd like to piggyback on that with which is like, oh, your grandfather, your great-grandfather who's getting on in age has a story that he tells about what happened in the war and it gets different each time, or, oh, the fish gets larger each time you tell it. So even 3 generations back, when you're talking about people that say, I was there and I saw it,
Plus,
the details change. It's not a great source of information.
Unless you appeal to an unconfirmed miracle, I must have had a grandfather.
Yeah. I guess
it's not the case that I must have had a Jesus.
Maybe I could try a different approach if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I don't want to like debate. I feel like that's what's going to happen, but I don't want to. My thing is, if I could show you guys.
Hang on.
Yes.
You're convinced of something, and we're not. And
yes.
The purpose of the call-in show is to have these sorts of discussions or debates, and yet you're calling in to say that you want to change our mind, but you don't want to debate. What the hell do you think will work?
Yeah. No, what I mean by debate is I don't want it to turn into some kind of like, back and forth, each other cutting each other off kind of thing. I'd like to hear your standpoint. I really want to hear how you came to your relationship with Christ, if you've had one, and then kind of walk through what that was like and why you stopped following. And so without, cutting each other off or being rude or anything like that. I don't want to be that kind of person.
No, we interrupt because we're trying to get clarity, and because if we let somebody talk for 5 minutes, then we have to backtrack that 5 minutes to get to the first thing that's a problem. It's just the way it works best on a TV show. If you wanted to have a more thorough discussion, you can send an email,
or you can find us on Reddit at reddit.com/r/talkheathen.
So let's see if we can fast track this. Mm-hmm. Jamie and I don't believe there's a God or anything supernatural. You do. Why?
Yes. Because I felt him.
Can you clarify precisely what you mean by felt? Because I don't think you mean you shook his hand.
Because look, I just felt Jamie. There's a way we use language. When I say I felt something. Okay. So go ahead. Tell us how you felt this.
I would describe it the same thing as, I don't know if one of you two gentlemen have ever been in love. You can't physically touch. It's not a tangible aspect. It's a feeling of love. And
so you mean an emotional feeling?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right.
So to clarify, do you mean it's something different than that? Because there are people that fall in love with celebrities they've never met and fictional characters, and they.
Yeah, I can be in love with someone and even be convinced that they're in love with me, and I can be wrong.
That's totally okay. I mean, I think that's a part of why there's so many religions. I personally believe that I have I agree with the true religion, but that's okay. Yeah. And I'm not here to say that anyone is right or wrong. I'm just saying.
Yes, you are. No. Stop. You are here to say.
I just retract that statement. I retract that statement. I'm sorry. I know in debates I have to be very careful with words.
You're here to explain why you're convinced that you're right, and our job is to explain why we're not convinced. And that means there are going to be questions. But you've gone to this. You started with the Bible. You started with a feeling. I think that we're probably going to part ways on the nature of what evidence should count and how much evidence should be sufficient. So we'll try this again, and I'll stop for a minute.
Yeah.
Why are you convinced that you have a relationship with the supernatural being?
Because I can speak to him. I can, pour out my heart to him. I can tell him what I'm at. Sometimes I'll be honest with you guys. I cuss at him. I can cuss at my dad sometimes.
Okay.
I have that relationship.
So here's what I'm going to go ahead and guess. I'm going to assume that when you cuss at your dad, you get some kind of response from him, and that other people could be there and confirm what that response was, or that it could be captured on video. Hopefully it's not too harsh. But is there something like that? Like, oh yeah, no, I get a response from the supernatural being that you experience?
Yeah, yes, there actually is. I mean, it's not going to be something that someone can videotape, but in my heart, because it's a relationship through your heart. That's
I
the whole
don't care
point.
about your heart. I don't care what you're convinced of. I care why. The why is the most important thing. And so you say, well, I can talk to Jesus and I can pour my heart out to him. Well, guess what? So can I. And I can also talk to other fictional characters and pour my heart out to them. The demonstration that there's a relationship is when it's bi-directional, when I am getting clear messages and clear interactions with somebody. And it can't just be a feeling, because the guy who fell in love with, pick a celebrity,
Taylor Swift,
may be convinced that love is being returned. Oh, she loves me, she's just hiding it. She loves me, she's just doing this and blah, blah. We need to be able to discern what is in fact real. I have no problem accepting that you have feelings for Jesus. The issue is, why would you think that Jesus has feelings for you? And if your only thing to point to is that you feel it, I don't care. Because that's not evidence for the proposition. That's just more evidence that you are convinced. We already know you're convinced. What would convince somebody else?
Well, someone else would have to feel. Someone else would have to feel it. Like, I think what
Okay.
you guys are asking for. You guys are asking for hard, testable evidence.
Yes.
That a spiritual feeling
Yes.
is real.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just hope you guys. Yeah, I hear you guys. I just hope you guys understand that you guys cannot physically test a spirit. You guys.
Why
Then
should
I
we
hope you
believe that it exists?
No. This is the problem. Okay, what we're looking for is evidence that would be sufficient to warrant believing. You're now admitting that no such evidence exists and that you believe anyway, which means you are by definition irrational on this topic.
I don't know. Could you break that down a little more? I don't understand. Are you guys trying to?
He's saying that you depart from using reason when you come to the conclusion on this question.
No, not at all.
He's departed from evidence.
Have you departed from reason and evidence? Like the
No.
because
Actually, my faith is backed up by reason, and my reason.
so is it backed up by evidence?
Stop. Nobody gives a shit about reason either right now. We're talking about evidence. You can have flawed reasoning. You can have good reasoning. But if you have bad evidence that you're making good reasoning on, you're still going to reach unjustified conclusions. What we need is the evidence. Evidence that should warrant accepting the thing that you accept. And yet you came back with, I hope you guys understand that you can't prove this.
Absolutely, and you guys.
So
you guys
can
can't
you?
prove your? No,
Can
I'm
you
telling you that
demonstrate
there's-
it?
I'm telling you that there's no person that can prove whether a God is or is not real.
So
You guys,
then-
no person.
That is an
Or-
admission that there cannot be a rational, evidence-based justification for God.
Yes.
Okay.
So is there a good reason to believe in a God?
No, that's the admission. If he admits, which he just did and said yes, that there's no rational, warranted belief in a God, then we're done.
Well, that doesn't make the conversation over, Matt. Just
It
only
does.
because
It does, actually.
just because
You know what
just
really
because
makes
there's
the
no rational-
conversation over? When I say the conversation's over. Here's the thing.
So
If you believed that my Aunt Josephine was a mass murdering child rapist, and I asked you for evidence, and you said, I just feel it, and nobody could actually prove that your Aunt Josephine is this, then I'm going to hang up on you, because every point in conversation after that is now a complete waste of time, because I care about evidence and what's true, and you don't.
No, I'm sorry, Matt. And actually, I would ask if you please don't, and I could kind of just maybe try a different way. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to sound irrational either. What I would like to ask is just about, because this faith is totally based off of faith, and faith is not really rational.
So
That's why it's called faith.
Congratulations, you just hung up on yourself.
So Juan, let me see if I can bridge a gap here. When Matt says irrational, unless I'm mistaken, it's roughly equivalent to not rational.
Yes.
So if you say that it's not rational, Matt would phrase that it is irrational. So you and
that's-
Matt agree on that point, it seems.
Yes.
Okay,
I
so
still believe it to be true.
I am not
And I just wanted
interested.
to share that with you guys.
yeah. So,
Okay. Oh my God.
all right. So
No. You. How many times are we going to let somebody tell us, I have an irrational belief that I'd like to share with you? Because that's preaching. And this is not the show to
yeah,
call
but
in
you
and
guys love
preach.
the show.
This is a show where you call in and present evidence for why you believe something. If I came to you
Okay.
and said, there is no God, and I know this because I feel it, and it's irrational. I can't prove to you that there's no God, but this is what I'm convinced of, and I know it's irrational. Now are you going to stop believing?
No, Matt. Just because
Exactly.
I have a personal relationship. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, hold on.
not because
Yeah.
if you're not believing what I just said because you have a personal relationship, you need to demonstrate that personal relationship. The reason to not accept what I just said is that it's irrational.
Yes.
Yeah, so let me jump in here because I don't want this to go around and around about your specific belief, right? As a quick side note, when one person is convinced that they love another person and have a relationship with them and there's no demonstration the other way around, generally we call that stalking. But I'd like to get to the point where you say, oh, no, it's irrational, but I believe it based on faith. Because at the point at which we are not talking about, having beliefs because of sufficient evidence and good reason, then the conversation can't really continue with, but I read the Bible or I have a feeling. We have to have a conversation about why would you believe a thing, anything, without that, without reason and evidence, entirely separate from a belief in a God. Why would you believe something without sufficient evidence for it?
Me personally, I believe that God is just a little bit outside of our own human intellect. And
Yeah,
that's
hold on,
why
Juan. Hold on, because I think maybe this call is sounding a little bit aggressive to you, because this isn't a question about your God belief, and it's not a question about Jesus. Yeah. It's a question about you and how you come to conclusions, right? Like if I'm trying to come to the conclusion that, no, my car wasn't broken into, I would go and look at it, because then I would be able to confirm that it was or wasn't broken into, and if I wasn't sure, I would ask someone else to investigate. I would investigate the solid evidence. A car being broken into is a mundane claim, but mundane or extraordinary or otherwise, I would like to rely on sufficient evidence and good reason to come to a conclusion. Is that generally the way you live your life?
Yes.
So is there another instance in your life, other than belief that Jesus is God and that you have a personal relationship with him? Other than that, is there any other belief that you hold separate from reason and evidence?
I'm not sure I understand your question too much. You just
How
asked
many
me
other
if I-
batshit beliefs do you have that aren't supported by evidence, where you appeal to faith and say, yes, it's irrational, but I believe it anyway?
No, I think this is the only one.
I think that's a good thing generally. But so I'd like to encourage you to call back in next week, because I think we've gone around in circles, and it's probably going to be better if we take a breather for 7 days, or you want to get in touch with us online, or you want to like and subscribe. I don't
You should also look up special pleading, because if this is the one belief that you have where you say, I'm going to throw reason and evidence out the window and just go on feelings and faith, that's special pleading. And so now you're using a completely different epistemological method for this claim than you are any other, and that betrays a hidden bias that you want to believe this.
Yeah. So basically, I don't mean to be that guy. You didn't sign up for a class, and I'm not a teacher, but if I can give you the homework of examining and seeing, like, okay, do I think about this belief, the belief in God, differently than every other belief? And why would I do that, and is that reasoning good? And if you call back in next week, it'll be Eric and someone probably, but that would be a good thing to examine, and I think that's the next point that needs to happen in the conversation.
Yeah, I actually, I can take down, I can like, subscribe, and all that, and I can take down any articles you guys may have for me, or pieces of homework you guys would like to give me, and I'll do it. I was also going to ask if I could also do the same for you guys, just 2 pieces, because things that have helped me.
Sure. Give me the So here, I don't have the citations off the top of my head. They've put the Reddit in the lower third. If you have sufficient internet access, a little bit of time, and not a fear of Reddit, if you can drop it in there, that would be fantastic, because I don't have a notepad in front of me to type things.
What are you going to say if you attempt to give us homework, which we did 20 years ago?
What am I going to say? Meaning, like, what pieces would I give you?
Yeah, like if you give me homework that I've already done. Like if you said, hey, Matt, you should probably go out and learn something about logical fallacies, I'm going to laugh. If you say, hey, Matt, you should go read the Bible, I'm probably going to get incredibly irritated, as I'll bet money I know the Bible better than you and most of the people you know. So what's our homework?
Yeah, that's probably true.
What's our homework?
So my homework would be, there's a guy, his name is Lee Strobel.
Oh, my fucking God.
All right. So hold on. So at this point, I'm trying to... Yeah.
No.
So Juan, I'm trying to sort of wrap up this call so we can get some time for other callers, but I don't want this to be the end of the conversation. I just think the next part needs to be some reflection and some of that homework. But at this point, I think I can briefly speak for Matt, though using different words. Yes, he's familiar with Lee Strobel.
Here,
but,
let me tell you, I'm not only familiar with Lee Strobel, the fake skeptic hack who wrote The Case for Christ, The Case for the Resurrection, and all these other things, but when my parents discovered that I'm an atheist, rather than having a conversation with me, they went out and looked around to see who they could find. And you know who they found? Lee Strobel was in town. So they go to Lee Strobel, and they talk to Lee Strobel, and they say, hey, our 30-year-old son or whatever is now an atheist. What do we do? And that jackass sold them copies of his books, which I got for Christmas, which I explained to my mother, not only do I already have copies of these books, I've written rebuttals to these particular books. Why don't you find me some apologist books that I don't have? And then about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, while I was debating Mike Lacona on the resurrection at an event here in Austin, Texas, Lee Strobel was here and present. Lee Strobel will not debate because he knows he's shit at it. And I also went up to Lee and had a conversation with him where I told him what my parents did and how maybe when people come up and say, hey, our kids are atheists, instead of selling them your shitty fucking books, you should tell them to talk to your kids. So yeah, I'm really familiar with Lee Strobel. This is what I predicted you were going to give me homework that I've already done.
Yeah. Oh, and so then that was going to be my thing, was to watch The Case for Christ. And then, but since you said you already have rebuttals, I would actually like to see those. If there's videos and articles,
go to infidels.org and look in the secular web where countless people have written rebuttals to both Josh McDowell and Lee Strobel and all the modern apologists. I find it funny that you're recommending I go watch The Case for Christ, which is a biopic about Lee Strobel, rather than actually reading the book. Because the biopic on the man is irrelevant to the arguments about the existence of God. All that is an argument that he became convinced, just like all you have is an argument that you've become convinced. Instead, I actually read his books and considered the arguments and pointed out where they were flawed.
Okay, yeah, no, and I appreciate that, because like I said, I had these same questions as you did, and so I would love to hear your rebuttal, and I'm open-minded to it.
All right, so here, real quick, before another point of contention comes up, so I'll make a deal with you on, if you post a link, go to, I don't know why I love Reddit so much, but if you go to Reddit and you create a post and we exchange links for evidence and we do each other's homework as best as can be done in 7 days with busy schedules. Then after that, when you call in, it'll probably be Eric next week, but it might be me. We can continue to have this discussion if that's something you're willing to do.
Ruth Ann in Virginia, you're live with Eric and Jamie. How's it going?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, we're doing well.
Doing marvelously.
Yeah.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. We can hear you well. Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
Okay, fantastic. So before I get into what I wanted to say, just really quick, I just want to echo with the gentleman earlier, and I feel like all of us are feeling. I just wanted to meet my condolences, Eric, and really sorry to hear the story and that happened to your uncle. I'm a Christian, but despite that, I don't believe in people who take advantage of folks like that. And but not to get into what I believe, how that goes, but I don't support that.
That's good. That is much more moral than the people who preyed on him, that's for sure. Now, I will say that if you say he's in a better place, that's probably going to be the most upsetting thing you could tell me. So please avoid that one.
I'm not going to say that.
Okay, good.
Because I'm not going to get into that at all. So I wasn't going there. Okay, so, oh, man. Oh, I just wanted to say, so, and my name is Ruth Ann. Guess where that came from?
Ruth Ann.
Yeah. So it really actually really bothers me that your show and shows like your show and other atheists, like I have some atheist relatives, and other atheists try to kind of convince people not to follow God, not to be Christians, and convert them to the atheist faith instead of respecting what people believe. And one of the key arguments that I've never really listened to your show before, but I'll just say my atheist, I'll call him Mike, my atheist friend Mike says, one of the things he always says to me is he's like, you can't see God, you can't feel God, you've never talked to God. I have spoken to God. I have seen God. I have felt God. I speak to him every day. And I just don't think it's right of you all to invalidate my experiences.
Well, no,
we're not invalidating your experiences. And the reason that we do what we do is the same reason that people de-radicalized white supremacists or persuade people to vote a specific way. Beliefs matter. They inform actions.
Right.
I mean, either your experiences are legitimate or they're not. We don't need to delegitimize them if they're not legitimate, right? So if you care about the truth of a thing, and it is true that your God exists, then it doesn't really matter what we say, right? Because it would be true. But if it's so upsetting that we would go through that, then it's worth having the conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I want to go back to what you said just a second ago.
Okay, and then I actually want to ask you what you mean by the atheist faith, because that just blew my mind.
Okay, I'll be happy to go over that.
Okay, good.
Great, but back to what you said about it doesn't matter what you say. It does matter what you say, because I'm just talking about you guys from, like, I think I listened to, like, maybe 15 minutes of a show, but what you guys are doing is you all are actually turning people against Jesus, well, God, and by having shows like this. And, I mean, I don't come to your house and try to convince you to be a Christian. And, okay, so this is what I would do. I don't believe in...
Okay, hold on, Ruth Ann. Hold on.
So
you found our YouTube channel where people call in to us to talk to us, and you're comparing that to us going into your home and forcing a conversation on you. Is that right?
Well...
Because that really doesn't add up, does it?
Well, not exactly, because...
Not even close.
Well, you're a danger to the youth because they have access to YouTube. And it really bothers me that, one day my nieces and nephews, I don't have kids, but, my nieces and nephews can come across this and start believing this stuff. And that's the problem, It's like...
Sorry, that's our live studio audience.
Yeah,
they're hoping that your nieces and nephews find the show.
Yeah.
Well, not on our watch, believe me, absolutely not.
So why are ideas so dangerous? I mean...
Well, it's because they're false ideas.
Well, then if it's false, it'll show itself to be false, won't it, Ruth?
Right, but children are impressionable.
Exactly. Actually, if I can jump in here, Ruth Ann, I entirely agree with you. I have young nieces and nephews. I don't want them to be told what to think, and I think that there are false ideas that are very dangerous that they could very easily be subjected to. Just out of curiosity, how strongly do you stand opposed to missionaries?
Well, I don't really necessarily always agree with that. It depends on the situation. Like, for example, if a missionary is just, like, let's say, for example, going to your house and, in an area that doesn't need Jesus. I mean, there's certain countries where, people don't have religion and they don't have the morality that we get from religion in the United States. So, I mean, I agree with that in that case. And even in all cases.
I don't. Hold on. What morality comes from your Bible that we don't have?
No, I think she's saying that the United States does, but that there are other countries.
Right. And what morality do they not have that your Bible needs to give them?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get into that because.
Well, no, I do. I do. Give me an example, please.
Okay. Let's say you went to a country, right, and they were kind of like didn't have a lot of education, and so if they don't read the Bible, they don't understand what the things that God said. And so if you look at the Ten Commandments, like,
Okay, let's go through the Ten Commandments. What's the first commandment?
Which ones?
I am the Lord thy God, right? Okay, show me where I need to be moral in I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Where is the moral judgment? Let's go to the second one, right?
Not believing in God is immoral.
How? Let's go to the next one. Okay. Thou shalt not worship false idols.
That's immoral.
How? I mean, we can go through them, right? What's the next one?
Well, it depends on which version you're.
Yeah, I mean, we can. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not have lust in your heart. What does that have to do with the way you behave towards other people? I don't care if you look at somebody.
Just out of curiosity, when you're talking about the what is called the Law of Moses, but that in the Old Testament are described as instructions from God to his people on the correct way to behave, do you still believe that all of the instructions about the correct price to pay if your oxen breaks free and gores the oxen of your neighbor, like the correct payment in shekels, presumably that is also a moral instruction?
I'd actually like to stick with the Ten Commandments, Jimmy, for just a little bit. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay,
So you're right.
the third
Those
commandment.
ones are more sensible.
And she brought up the commandments, so I'm going to go on the commandments. Third one, keep the Sabbath holy.
Yes, I believe that you need to keep the Sabbath holy.
Okay, and that is a moral pronouncement.
Yes.
Okay, what is immoral about that? If I have to work on a Sunday, right, so that I can put food in my mouth or keep a roof over my head, why is that immoral?
Well, I think that God can make exceptions if it's as long as
Can God make exceptions to all the other rules?
No, not necessarily, but
just to this one.
There's a lot of gray area, so let's stick with this one. So
Okay, then let's go to the next one. Honor thy father and mother.
No, I want to go back to the one where, can I answer your question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so, I'm sorry. So God, if you have to work on Saturday, because the Sabbath is Saturday, so if you have to work on Saturday, or if you have to work on Sunday, as long as you have a day and you keep it, as long as you have a day that you set aside, that's fine.
Just as a quick side note, so to you, the Sabbath just means to keep the Sabbath holy just means 1 out of every 7 days. It doesn't matter which.
Because that's not what's in the book. That's your own take on a thing.
Well, no, that's your take on it, though.
No. I'm asking because at one point you just said, sorry, I didn't want this to be contentious and I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but what you said was, so if it's Saturday or Sunday, because that was going to be my question, is which day is the Sabbath, and are changing the rules as the early church did because they didn't want to be associated with Jews, moral or immoral, but does it matter which day of the week?
No, it doesn't matter which day. I was just saying that because that's what it was originally. I mean, the context changed, right?
So to be clear, we can change the law then? Okay.
I can change that, not me, for you.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I actually, I didn't quite hear what
I
you...
said God can change it,
Okay,
not me. I'm not.
so you believe that God, one, changed which day was the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, and then two, at some point, changed it so it's okay that it's any day.
But none of that's in the book. It's just your
Yeah.
take on it.
Where is it that that's communicated from God?
Yeah, I do believe that. I do believe that God, I believe that God makes exceptions and that things, because,
Okay.
for example, all the laws.
Why?
So all the laws back in the day of Moses, God doesn't come down and, destroy New York, for example, because people aren't following the laws. Like, he destroyed the whole world with the flood, but he doesn't come back and do that anymore because the contexts are different.
Should he have done that in the first place, Ruth?
I mean, I believe that. Well, I mean, I believe that God. I, as a person, cannot understand and don't question God's reasoning.
Okay, but you can understand his law.
Yeah, and personally, I think what you're leading into, Ruth, is a cop-out. Because just because I don't understand, I'm still right. That's basically what you're saying. I don't understand it, but I'm still right and you're still wrong. That doesn't follow. But let's go to the next commandment. I want to go to the next commandment.
Okay.
Okay, honor thy father and mother. So tell me about why it would be immoral not to honor thy father and mother. I'll give you an example, right? Abraham took his son Isaac to murder him on a cliff because he heard voices in his head.
Yeah.
Right? Would you think that it's an okay thing for children to be totally cool with their parents murdering them or slaughtering them?
Well, the child's not going to be okay with it.
The child's not going to be, or would you be okay with it?
I mean, no.
Why?
I wouldn't be okay with it. But it's because I'm not that strong enough to be able to go through something like that.
That's gross.
If God told me that I had to, let's say, murder like 25 people, like I wouldn't be able to do that. No, I'm not.
No, and that's because you're a better person than that, Ruth. You're a better person than that. Because you're talking about a book that was written over 2,000 years ago, especially when we're talking about the Old Testament, over 2,000 years ago by Bronze Age goat herders. At the time, it was necessary. But right now, as we're looking at it, honoring thy father and mother is nice in the most part, but it doesn't mean that it's something that we need to stick to so solidly that it becomes immoral, right? And I mean, we can continue, right? Number 5, thou shalt not kill.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, how can you say that killing is not immoral?
Well, let's take a look. There are different definitions. Some people say thou shalt not murder. Murder is, by definition, wrong. I don't need a Bible to have a definitionally wrong thing happen. I can say murder is wrong. I don't need to have that book telling me that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So,
right, that's true.
And then also killing, right? You're talking about something that's not necessarily unlawful. And there are justifiable things like protecting your family or
Self-defense.
Self-defense, right? Things like that. And so, again, we're looking at a law that isn't very applicable. So now we're 5 into 10, right? 5 into 10, and you said that maybe one of them had gray area. So far, they all have gray area. But let's go into number 6.
Said it's not applicable. You said it's not applicable.
No, you said it as gray area.
No, but you said that the laws are no longer applicable.
Well, let's keep going and find out. Number 6, thou shalt not commit adultery.
Oh yeah, that's the one that I feel is the most important.
Totally. More important than murder?
Well, not more important necessarily as in it.
Okay.
Well, okay, let's just put it this way.
Okay.
All sins are the same through God, right? However, I would say that to keep order, that yes, it is more important not to have people murdering each other in this country, right? Okay, but I will say that much. But if you want to talk about committing adultery, it's a lot more common and applicable to a lot more people. So that's why I'm saying that, because it's just it happens a lot more often than people who murder.
Sure.
So that's all my point.
What is adultery, Ruth?
It's cheating on your husband or wife. It's fornicating.
What's fornicating?
You know, having. Oh, come on.
No, tell me. What is fornicating? If you're saying it's that important and moral, you can say what it is. What's fornication? Is it butt stuff?
I'm saying that because you guys know what it is. You're asking me, but having sex outside of marriage.
That's fornication.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Outside of any marriage?
Yes.
What about gay marriage?
Oh, I'm not going to gay marriage. No.
I think that's wise.
To be clear, we're not forcing you to get gay married right now. That you don't have to get gay married. We're just asking because I want to get to, is it only marriages consecrated in what you would see as a legitimate church?
Well, we know that. Well, we know. Yes, I'm just going to leave it at that. Yes.
Okay, so interfaith marriages and marriages under the Islamic Sharia. Presumably, the people that are in those marriages having sex are committing adultery.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a loving Muslim couple. They've been married for 35 years. They live in this country, etc. When they have 3 children, they've committed adultery at least 3 times, is what you're saying?
So let's back up for a second. I want to say that I don't have I'm not against Muslims or I don't have Islamophobia or hate in my heart. Okay.
I don't believe that you have hate in your heart, but for you to say that you're not against Muslims is disingenuous in your mind, because presumably you would like everyone to be led to Christ, and a person being a Muslim is them preventing themselves from being led to Christ, is it not?
Right, and it's not me that says that, it's God that says that.
No,
you're saying it
you're
right
saying that
now.
to us.
Yeah. You may believe that you're transmitting the word of God.
Yeah, but we're talking to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I, Ruth Ann, says then, I am following the Bible, following what God said.
Yes.
And
you are saying what the word of God is.
And we're saying that those are not really great rules, but let's move to the next one.
You are teaching men at the moment as well. But
let's see. Thou shalt not steal.
Well, yeah, stealing is immoral.
Can you think of a moral time when it would be correct to steal?
No.
No? Have you ever seen Les Mis? Jean Valjean stole a loaf of bread to feed his starving family.
I mean, I feel for him, but there's ways to get loaves of bread for your family.
No, we're talking about revolutionary France. There was no other way.
No, I don't agree with it. I'm sorry.
So should he have died?
I don't believe it was okay.
So if somebody has the chance to steal food for their family, or that family starved to death, you feel that the moral option, please correct me, is for those people to starve to death.
I feel as if God will provide for them.
okay.
Okay, does God provide for starving children in third world countries?
Yes.
Really?
Then why do they die?
Oh, I have some depressing news for you, Ruth.
Children starve to death right now.
Every day.
Okay, I will concede that to you.
Okay, so when you say God will provide, very clearly, God is not providing.
And I think that's actually something worth breaking into, because does your God see those children starving to death?
Yes.
Does he have the power to feed them?
Well, let's just talk about children starving to death, and I know what atheists say. This is why I said there's an atheist base, because atheists definitely have a belief that they have.
Like what?
Oh my God.
But anyway, God gives us free will, right? And so
Does he?
Yes. So usually that's why these things happen. So God just doesn't want us to be robots and not think for ourselves.
No, he wants to let children starve.
Because that's more important.
Yes.
But here's my point. No. But here's my point. So if children are starving, if things are going wrong in the world, it's because man has caused that.
Ooh, I got this one. I know the answer to this one. Okay.
Okay.
So Ruth, is there free will in heaven?
I don't know. I've never been to heaven.
If you're, okay, well, hold on. If there's no free will, then would you be you? Or would you just be an automaton, like you were saying, a robot?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be me, but I don't know what's in heaven.
You wouldn't be you in
Okay.
heaven. So when you die, what makes you think you're going to heaven at all?
No, wait, I didn't say that there wasn't free will in heaven. I said I don't know if there is because I don't know what's going to happen in heaven exactly.
Okay. If you don't have free will, the way you're defining it, would you be you? Would you continue to be Ruth Ann, or would you be converted to some kind of robot? Because at that point, I can say Ruth Ann ceases to exist at the point that she dies, and a robot is added to heaven, right?
No, I would still be me.
Okay,
I would
so if
still
you'd
be like-
still be you, so you'd still have some kind of sentience, some kind of free will, maybe?
No, I
No.
don't think so because I think that. Well,
Oh.
okay. See, I don't like the way you're defining it though. I think that once you go to heaven, there is no sin. There is.
No. I get
So-
that. But I'm saying that if there is free will in heaven, and let's face it, Satan turned against God, and I don't think God wanted that, so I would consider that a free choice, right? I think that you choose, right? I mean, at least as far as I've been told, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but when you go to heaven, aren't you choosing to worship God forever and ever and all that good stuff?
Amen.
I might be wrong.
Yes, and I mean, but why would you not want to? I mean, God brought you to heaven. God brought you to a beautiful place.
And
I
God
don't
killed
even-
tens of thousands of babies. I really think that God's got a lot to answer for. But let's talk about that. If you are choosing, then you have free will. And if there is free will in heaven and no evil, that means your God can create a heaven or a place at all where there's both free will and no babies dying. So why would God do that? Why would God create such
Why would
evil
God
here?
wait to do that?
Yeah, because if you can have free will,
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't it be bad enough if you stub your toe, right? Why does there have to be cancer, right? Wouldn't it be bad enough if you sprained an ankle? Why do you have to have leeches that eat your eyeballs and shit like that? Weird stuff all over the world that's horrifying. Flesh-eating bacteria and diseases where people's insides melt away. I mean, that's a little much, isn't it?
I mean, I don't know why God has made the. I mean, I don't.
Okay, but-
it's not up to me to understand that. So
To be
I
clear,
think
you don't know God's reasoning, but you know that it's there, and you know that this is God's will, and you know that this is good. I'm just checking here. Are the things that I'm saying accurate?
the things you're saying are correct. Can I just add something really quick to
Sure.
just tell you how I know that there is a God, because that was originally why I was calling.
Okay.
And all of this is connected actually. So I'm glad we went down this path, and I appreciate that.
Oh, good.
So you say, you're asking me, how do I know this is God? How do I know this and that or whatever? By the way, I don't think that you're reading out of the King James Version, so I don't know. Anyway,
Ruth, you don't know me at all. I have read King James, I've read NIV, and I've read ESV. If you really want to go into that, we can. Let me know which version.
I was saying you weren't just reading out of the King James Version when you were reading the commandments. But anyway,
Right.
So
back to what I was saying. So I have had conversations with God in my dreams. And I remember, when I was about 6, 7 years old, maybe a little bit older, I can't remember. But, and this was 20 years ago. So I was doubting God, and I don't know, I just kind of lost my way, and I don't know. But anyway, I prayed to God, and I said, God, please send me a sign that you are you, that you exist, that you are the loving God that I want to believe that you are, right? And that same night, I had a dream, and God actually appeared to me in this dream, and he told me, well, I don't want to get into all of it because it's personal, but he talked to me about some things that really gave me comfort. And why would that happen? And then,
Because you were thinking about it, Ruth.
yeah. Because you had a dream.
And because who's to, I mean, how can you show us that that dream was true?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't show you because it's my personal relationship with God.
No, it's your personal memory and it's your personal dream.
It's your dream.
But you can have, having a relationship with a dream is kind of weird to say, right?
But God appeared in this dream.
Okay.
You dreamed that you had a conversation with a person, and that's your evidence that a God exists, and that's your evidence that there's one particular version of the Bible that's correct? Is that the entire pillar of your faith, ma'am?
No, I've had lots of dreams about it, actually. And
Sorry, your volume's dropped out a little bit.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. I think we're having a little bit of a...
Hold on.
Hey, she's back.
There it is. Hey, you're back.
Hold on. Okay, is that better?
Much better.
Okay. So, I've had lots of dreams. I've talked to God. I've heard God. And not to get into all of that, but I could give you so many examples. And whenever I ask God for something, He sends me a sign. And I just don't think that that could be a coincidence. And I mean, I know that you guys don't believe in God or whatever, but I mean, I feel as if you have these same experiences as I have, that you would believe in God. And
I've had those same experiences. I don't believe in God.
Yeah, I believe for many, many years. And the fact is when you're, it's called counting the hits and ignoring the misses. Have you heard of that before?
I have, and I will tell you that God, sometimes the answer is no.
Okay, how can you determine a no answer from God not existing?
I mean, I think that when I've gotten a no answer, I've prayed to God, and He's helped me understand why it was a no. Or something in my life has happened, and I knew that I wasn't ready for it. And so, I mean, and if I've asked God for something selfishly at times, He may not give it to me.
And can you give me an unselfish thing that God has given you?
An unselfish thing that God has given me?
Yeah, I mean, I want to know how these miracles work. I want to know how God responds to you. And is it the same way? Do you wake up and there's a feather on your pillow every time that God visits? Is there something physical, tangible, anything that can tell you that, oh, this was different from a dream? I mean, I want to know why you're giving credence to these dreams when they can just be dreams.
Well, I mean, yes, and I thought that I had given that example, but so if that wasn't clear with the first one, that I prayed to God and then He appeared to me in the dream. So I think that is that God showed me that He was God, that He was hearing and answering my prayer. And I was really, He knew that my heart was in turmoil at the time as a 7-year-old, and He responded to that, And I haven't hardened my heart to God. I mean, I think that once you harden your heart and maybe become an atheist, you...
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop you right there. Because where you're going with that is like, oh, I think once you harden your heart to God, that's why you've come to a different conclusion. No, I had those same experiences. What you've just described is a 7-year-old praying and having dreams. If you do a little bit of research into humans finding patterns and how we're pattern-seeking creatures and humans having dreams, and you approach this with a critical mind, I think you might come to a different conclusion. If you don't harden your mind to reality, I think you might see that what you attribute to God is you being human.
Right, but you can't use that. You can't use science to explain God because it's just...
Science is a process of examining the world critically. What you've just said is equivalent to saying you can't look at the world, you can't try and understand the world to try and understand God. That's what that sentence means.
But I understand what you're saying, but I mean, I guess I just have such a different mindset. I do.
I agree.
Ruth, you have a different epistemology. Can I explain epistemology to you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Your epistemology is your toolbox. It's what you use to decipher the world around you and determine what is true and what is not true, right?
Right.
You have a different set of tools in your toolbox than we do. And because of that, you come to different answers about what you hold as true in the world around you.
Yeah.
And so what we're saying is that that toolbox, those tools, should be useful everywhere you go. And when you have a tool in your toolbox that does not lead you to truth, you need to get rid of that tool because it is not useful, right? So if I were to say, I had a personal experience and I am God, would you believe me?
No.
If I were to say, I do miracles every day, would you believe me?
No.
Why?
Because you haven't shown me that you're God.
Okay, show me your God and then we can talk. Because you have a pretty sound epistemology about my views, but it seems like you don't have a very sound epistemology about your own. How come you have a much higher standard of evidence for other people, but it appears that you don't have the same standard of evidence as your God or for yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that we just
Now, I did have a
different ways.
Oh, go ahead. We look at evidence a different. I absolutely agree. And I encourage you to study your epistemology and determine what tools are best to use to ascertain what is true and not true about the world around you. And make sure those tools stand up everywhere you go. I did have a question come up in the chat, and I do want to bring it up.
Okay.
It was from Nikki, and the question was in the depths of depression and in the hardest point in her life, she prayed and begged God for any kind of sign, and none came. So the question was to respond to that, and I'd actually like to add a little bit more, because I think that if you believe God is loving, then you would think that your God loves me just as much as he loves you. Would that be true?
Right. Yes.
So how come God didn't love Nikki enough to send any kind of message, but sends you messages all the time? And that kind of goes back to also the dying babies. How come God loves you more than people in third world countries?
Well, here, let her get one of the questions at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with Nikki's situation, I feel really sensitive to that, and I'm really sorry that she wouldn't do that. But maybe God did reveal himself to her, and she just didn't see it. Like, I don't know.
Or maybe God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So, but also, maybe if she doesn't believe in God, maybe it's not something that she wanted to see.
Or maybe it's something that she wanted to see, and maybe God doesn't exist.
That is a possibility. I mean, you can't take that off of the table.
Okay. I don't agree that that's a possibility, but right?
Okay.
Hold on,
Do you think
hold
it's a
on.
possibility that there are people that believe, perhaps even more firmly than you do, in the existence of a God that are entirely wrong?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
You see them all the time.
Yes, but so your statement right there allows me to say, I don't think you're looking at this objectively at all.
Because how do you separate yourself from those others?
Yeah.
Okay, I will admit that I'm not entirely objective, but
I don't think you're objective at all. I think you've set yourself up in such a way that you will never, ever, ever critically examine your own thought or critically examine the thoughts of other people. You have a
Specifically
conclusion.
pertaining to God.
Specifically pertaining to God. Because you have your answer, and it doesn't matter what question comes up, and it doesn't matter what happens in reality. This is what I'm getting from what you're saying. You have your conclusion, and you'll find whatever reason, whatever sentences you can say to yourself or to other people that will lead you back to a conclusion that you have absolutely no ability to doubt or critically examine.
And that's different from us because...
We don't do that.
Yeah,
even
we're actually
more
listening
so,
and we're willing
I want to hear what your answer is to that idea.
to the dying babies.
No. To whether or not you have set yourself up in a place where you have crippled your own ability to critically examine claims about God.
No, I don't think I have at all.
Can you be wrong then?
Yes. Is it possible for you to be wrong?
I can be wrong about many things, but one thing I'm not wrong is that God is real and that God exists.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about my interpretations of the Bible, or, I could be wrong about a lot of things. I mean, I'm just
So you're
So
saying that
you
no
could
matter
be-
how much we talk to you and how much we try to rationalize with you, you're right, we're wrong, just because, and there's no way that you're going to think about it otherwise.
I mean, about this thing, I believe that you are wrong.
Okay.
I don't think that, but I don't think that the way that you argue and the logic that you use is wrong. But I don't think that those are the types of arguments and logic that you could use when discussing God.
Please respond. Is it true that you think you're right, there's no way for you to be wrong, and it doesn't matter how much we talk about it, you know that you're right, end of story?
About God existing, yes.
Okay, that's done.
Okay.
There's no reason to talk to somebody for that reason. I mean, no.
Does anyone have I think there's a dictionary out there. Will you please turn to the definition for close-minded? That would be, I think, helpful.
I was actually thinking credulous. Maybe both. That's
Yeah.
okay.
We'll fight about it later,
We will.
because that's what us atheists do.
All right, I'm going to move on to, it looks like we have John in Florida. John, you're live with Eric and Matt. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. How are you guys doing today?
Not bad.
I'm good. The caffeine is kicking in. I'm ready, brother. What do you got?
All right, man. Look, I've recently heard a few shows from you guys. I've kind of went on YouTube searches and saw and kind of got introduced to Matt through some of that recently and saw some of the discussions he was having with some theists in the past and some other past shows and things of that nature.
Can I ask one quick
And
question?
I think, yeah, well, my...
Hold on a
statement-
second. Matt wanted to ask you a question.
I just wanted to know if you'd seen the conversation that I had with Blake about whether or not faith is rational.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's the bone I got to pick with you right there, Matt.
Cool. That's what I suspected. I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
first of all,
And this is
one of the things
this
I
is
want to
Talk
talk
Heathen,
about is that,
so you're going to talk to both of us. This isn't a show where you're going to get one
sir,
host.
no problem.
All right?
No problem
Yeah.
at all. Well, for one thing, I believe both of you guys believe in God. You're just suppressing it.
Okay, so that's a claim that you're making. Is there anything you can do to back that up or show that that's anything other than just a claim?
And let me tack on to that. Do you think it's possible that someone believes something and yet they're unaware that they believe it?
Yes.
Okay, so it's
They can-
possible
they-
to believe in
they
something
possibly
and
could
not know that you believe in it.
They suppress it. Yes, sir. They may believe it unconsciously or subconsciously.
How do you demonstrate
Consciously,
that?
They'll be denying.
How do you demonstrate that is possible, that it's possible for someone to believe something and not be aware of it?
Because your actions, we walk what's in our heart, and we talk what we think.
I agree
So
that
you might
I agree
think
that
you don't believe.
I agree that your actions always comport with your beliefs.
There you go.
What belief do I have, or what action do I take that betrays my hidden secret belief of a God, or Eric, or anybody?
Let me ask you: Do you guys, both of you guys? I'm talking directly to both of you. Do you commit murder?
No.
Actually, I commit as much
No.
murder as I want to. I commit all of the murder that I want to. That's a Penn Jillette line that I absolutely love. Is I commit
Yeah.
all of the murder that I want to, which is none.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
heard
don't
that too.
I don't murder, but my reasons for not murdering have nothing to do with a belief in a God.
Where does your wants come from?
Where do my wants come from?
This is a weird line of questioning. Where are you going with this, man?
Well, let's let him go there.
Yeah.
I just want to know what.
Yeah, I'll get there for you.
Sure.
Where do my wants
Romans
come from? I'm
1:20.
I'm trying to figure out what you asked me a question. I really want to answer it. I just don't know that the question really makes sense. So, like,
Gotcha.
give me an example of a want that I probably have, and what you mean by where does it come from? Because I have things that I desire, and I couldn't possibly tell you what the motivation is, other than that it's something that arises from my brain as a result of complex interactions in reality.
Yeah, but those complex, that reality is what I'm pointing to. That reality is God.
Okay,
prove it.
That's not the reality that I'm pointing to. I'm talking about the physical reality that I'm in, that I am convinced we both share, and I'm not convinced that there's a God as any part of it. I'm talking about, like when I want to eat, that is the result of me not having eaten in a while and my body requiring nutrition. So the physical facts and laws about the universe dictate that I am going to want to be hungry. In a similar fashion, if I want to ride a roller coaster, there is some set of physical facts in the universe that have led to that eventuality that I may not fully understand, but I don't know how one could say that that is arising from a God.
Now, unless that's how you define God, John, are you defining God as the act of wanting?
Yeah. You're talking about two different things. You're talking about you're talking about physicality, which would be you're hungry. Maybe your stomach is needing nutrition and your body needs it. And then there's something unphysical going on, and that's the communication between your body and your mind.
Hold on. Do you think that your mind is not physical, John?
Conscious of that.
Do you think your mind is not physical?
Yeah, your mind is not physical. No.
Okay, so hold on a second. Because we've been able to demonstrate a whole lot about minds, right? We've been able to demonstrate that people who get into accidents, right, into maybe a major motorcycle accident and suffer brain damage, those people completely change, right? Their tastes change, their attitudes change, the way they look at the world changes. They could develop certain beliefs or other beliefs. So what is it about a mind that exists outside of the body?
So I'm not saying that the mind exists outside of the body.
Then what about the body is not physical?
But it's well, what I'm saying is that the mind is an aspect of the material world.
Everything that we know of is an aspect of the material world. Can you show me something that is not?
I mean, you're saying that a mind is not...
The only thing, I would say that God is everything and also outside of the physical world.
Okay, can you point to anything else?
Manifest through thoughts, through your consciousness.
Okay, hold on. Your consciousness is a physical thing as well, John. Your thoughts and your consciousness are also physical. Name something that is not physical.
No, there's a conceptual gap there. I mean, science is objective. Thoughts and everything.
No, science is a process.
Is subjective by nature.
Science is a process that we use.
There, though.
Hold on. Science is a process that we use to try and understand the world around us. It's not physical, right? It's something that we use. It's a process that we've developed to try and get closer to finding out true things about the world around us.
Where are the thoughts in your brain? If you open up a brain, can you show me the red moon that I'm imagining?
Stick you in an MRI. That's a thing, dude.
No, it's not. No, it's not. John is correct. That is a correlation. The place where John is wrong is in the very question, as if a thought is something that exists in some space or place. There's no reason to think that is the case.
Right.
Right. That doesn't mean that thoughts are things that are not physical. It means that thoughts are.
You're exactly right, sir.
Okay.
You're exactly right.
And so now you're in agreement with me that thoughts aren't things.
Right.
So that a question about where are thoughts is a non sequitur because thoughts aren't things, so they can't be somewhere.
Right.
Thoughts are the labels that we put on brain states.
But they exist.
No, they don't exist. You just agreed that they're not things. Thoughts are the labels.
They exist not as things.
Thoughts are the labels that we put on brain states, right?
They're correlated to brain states, yeah.
Okay.
Hold on. You brought up a red moon, right? If I were to stick you in an MRI and have you envision a red moon, we can see where in your brain those places are being activated. And we're getting to the place where, to a degree, you can think of a red moon, and at some point we're going to be able to go, hey, that person is thinking of a red moon. There are some incredible studies about that.
Maybe.
So
based on reports. If I give you a report that I'm thinking of a red moon, and then you see that my brain lights up in a certain area, then you can say, hey, this is what red moon looks like from the standpoint of MRI or whatever.
Well,
but
in
that's
John's
just a
brain.
Correlation, though, man.
In John's brain.
But it doesn't matter because you are asserting that minds are not physical. You are claiming that thoughts both... Oh, my God. You are claiming that thoughts are both not things and that they are things.
Yep.
Okay, that is a logical contradiction which nullifies your position. You have just affirmed both the affirmative and the antecedent. You have said that something is both what it is and not what it is. That is a contradiction, and that nullifies your position entirely.
But if I tell you that I feel a certain way, or if I have a headache.
Hang on, John.
That's a good example.
John, what does that have to do? What does that have to do with the fact? What is that, John? John, what does that have to do with the fact that you just affirmed two mutually exclusive contradictory positions? You don't get to. You don't
Correlation.
get. You don't. No, John. You don't get to say that something is both true and not true. And when I point it out, you go on to something else about how you feel. You have committed a logical fallacy by affirming both something as true and not true. And you don't just get to skip past it. Yes, you did, and you acknowledged it, and you agreed to it.
No, I mean, let me be clear.
Okay.
Please.
Maybe I'm being misunderstood. I don't know.
No, you
Let me be
misspoke,
clear.
but that's okay. Let's go back.
Thoughts in themselves, like pain.
There is no self.
Of pain. And I'm just using that as an example because it may make it a little more clear for you guys. If I have a headache or a toothache, and a doctor says, "Well, hey, man, I don't see your toothache existing anywhere in your brain or anywhere else. That's
Okay.
just your report."
Do you,
Yes.
do you understand?
Hang on, let me finish.
Right?
There,
I would be kind of irritated.
Oh my God,
I'm
John!
sorry, am I talking over you? Go ahead.
I have a toothache. I literally have a toothache right now. Now, I'm telling you that I'm explaining to you that my body is experiencing this. Yes, it is self-reported. There's no way for you to ever know whether or not I'm experiencing a toothache. But that doesn't make pain a thing unto itself. Pain is the description that I apply to what my body is experiencing. Now, you can believe me or not believe me, but that's independent of this. You're going from the physical to the conceptual and then trying to also claim that the conceptual is somehow real in and of itself. If every brain dies, if every nervous system ceases to exist, is there any pain in the universe?
Nope.
Correct. And so pain is a description of something that nervous systems experience, right?
Right. Experience. There you go.
And nervous systems are physical, correct?
Yes.
So this is a physical experience from a nervous system and a physical brain. Where are we getting to anything that is remotely non-physical?
Very simply, because there's a qualia. There's a
Qualia is nonsense,
to
but go ahead.
experience.
I reject
There's a quality to experience. A quality to experience doesn't exist, like you said, as a thing, but
Okay.
it does. It is a reality. It's a conceptual reality. You feel pain. That's a true feeling. Now,
It is
that's
true that you
totally
feel
different.
it. It doesn't mean that you are feeling something that is true. And qualia, by the way, I reject.
Okay, you reject it, but I know it's for real.
Okay, so hold on.
Cool. I don't,
let's
and there's
actually-
no way you can demonstrate it.
Yeah, let's drive this back for a second because you've done this twice now, John. You said you don't, but I believe it, therefore I'm right. How can we tell that? Because you've said you know that God exists, and you just right? Isn't that how you started this?
He started with "We know that God."
We know that God
so
exists.
we kind of got off track.
Yeah.
that's
So
true.
hold on.
That's true.
Let's
We kinda got
dive
off
back
track a little
here,
bit.
right? Because that is incredibly
go back a little
presumptuous.
bit.
Well, the
let's-
question that I had asked is it possible to believe something and not be aware? And you think it is, and I think it's not. So convince me that it's possible to believe something and not be aware that you believe it. Because to me, belief is a positive affirmation and acceptance of a proposition.
And
Right.
I'm going to jump right here at the beginning and say, I'm right and you're wrong just because, haha. It doesn't work.
That's not what
right?
he's doing.
Okay. Let's
not,
make sure.
That's not right.
That's
Yeah.
not what he's doing.
Right. That wouldn't be right. That wouldn't make sense.
Yes.
I'm
What I want.
basing what I'm saying
what I
on
want for
Bible.
clarity. What I want for clarity is the example is the case under which you can show that someone believes, accepts a proposition, and yet is not aware that they accept a proposition.
Okay. So, and this is where I'm getting this from. It's basically from Romans 1:20. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bible, man.
Oh my
I don't know
God!
if you get any
I'm not only am I
background on that,
familiar
but-
with it, I'm very familiar with it, and it's not relevant. You might as well be saying where I'm getting this is from Captain Kirk in Star Trek Season 2, Episode 14.
No, hold on a second. Hold on. I see. Okay, so I've got the Bible open to Romans, and I've got the book of Eric.
You going to what, Romans 1:9?
Run 120.
120.
All right,
Sure.
so I've got Romans open, and I also have the book of Eric open, right? So first thing I want you to do is I want you to convince me why I should be reading the Bible instead of the book of Eric.
Okay. Well, this kind of goes back to faith.
Okay, what is faith good for?
Okay, faith is when you have confidence in the process.
Okay.
There's going to come a time. I mean, when you don't start with absolute knowledge and certainty. You start, if you're going to discover something, you say, hey, well, let's see if this is going to work. Let me withhold judgment. Let me just have faith in the process and see what comes out on the other side.
Okay, so hold on
And
a
if you
second.
consistently get good results, then you can pretty much be assured that your faith is founded in something solid. because you get
Then I
good
would say
results
that you
from
would,
it.
then let's change that word, because I think faith is what you do when you don't have evidence. When you do have evidence, you don't need faith.
That's true.
Right.
He's
So-
using...
Faith is the confidence in what we hope for and the assurance.
Sure, Hebrews 1:11,
things
or
that
11:1,
we
sorry.
don't see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
Hebrews 11, I got it.
so what's the, okay,
Yeah.
so you're saying you have faith in your Bible, and I have faith in the book of Eric. Which book should I have open?
Yeah. So, first of all, look at Romans 1:20.
No,
That's
hold
where
on.
it
First,
started.
tell me which book I should have open. Because you're appealing to something in your book, and I really don't think that book is a way to get to truth. So please demonstrate to me why I should hold your book over mine.
Okay. Prophecies would be a good starting point.
Okay, do you think people can prophesy, and that is tell the future, right?
Yeah, that's right. The Bible makes very distinctive,
No, it doesn't.
very clear
Well, let's see.
prophecies about the Savior Jesus Christ dying for
Okay.
us on the cross.
Oh, hold on a second. So
and,
in your book,
believing-
No, it
okay,
doesn't.
hold on. In your book, you're saying, I'm not even going to open the Bible, but I know Matt could prove
Right.
you wrong on your statement. But let's just say that that's true. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, John. Okay? And given the benefit of the doubt, your book says there's a prophecy, and then also in your book, the prophecy comes true, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, that happens in my book too. Now, how do we tell the difference?
Let me short circuit this with one quick question. Let's say I have a book that has been right about 9 things. Does that mean it's right about the 10th thing?
That's where your faith comes in.
Okay, there's no good reason for faith, and I'm trying to get there, but let's start here.
If your wife is-
Okay,
is
my
faithful to you-
book prophesied, right, that Sunday was going to come after Saturday. Do you believe in my book now?
Yeah, but that's kind of arbitrary. That's not quite the same thing that I was.
Yes, it's far
Okay.
more accurate than anything in the Bible.
Okay, so let's say I wrote in my book that I died last week and came back to life. It says, Eric was going to die in the 3rd week of September 2018, and after a day or so, he rose from the dead, and it's in my book. Now, do you believe it?
Bingo. Yes, sir.
You do?
You believe the book of Eric?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh
If you
my
can
gosh,
demonstrate
John.
it- if
Oh,
you
wait,
can
hold on.
demonstrate it-
You just added an
The point is,
if.
you don't
Yeah,
have
wait
that
a second.
written, so, I
Are
mean,
you saying that you can
that's the
demonstrate
difference
that
between
claim in the
the
Bible?
Bible.
You just added a weird
That's
if.
the difference.
Yeah, hold on,
If
because
you
I
can
thought
show
you
me
were going to
that,
be a confirmed
I'll gladly
Ericite.
believe you.
So hold on. You're
Oh, I'm
saying you
sorry,
can
go ahead.
demonstrate the claim in the Bible. Okay, go ahead, please. I'm bated breath here.
So you just reference the Old Testament with the New Testament. You see
Yes,
Isaiah
in my book
52,
that
and they-
happens too.
You know-
Name something
you-
that proves your book different from mine.
But you have a problem there with what you said too, because do you know who references the Old Testament? Jews, and they don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah.
Well, that's a good point. That I'll give you that, Matt. You got a good point there.
Also, do you
But,
have
you
any
know-
way to show that Jesus died and was resurrected?
Well, yeah, it's in the Bible.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, no. You don't get to use the Bible to confirm the Bible. Do you have any extra biblical sources that attest to what the Bible claims?
Everything is found in the Bible. You use the Bible to interpret the Bible.
Okay, that's
Otherwise-
Then
fucking
everything
stupid, John.
everything is found in the book of Eric, and you use the book of Eric to confirm the book of Eric.
Then-
everything is found in Star Trek, and you use Star Trek to confirm Star Trek.
Which is why you don't use that to get to understand the truth about the world. It's not a reliable epistemology. Do
Yeah.
you know what epistemology means, John?
Well, this is why when he goes to
I think
Romans,
that's like the study of how you know stuff.
That's
is
right.
True or,
And so what we're doing is we're pointing out a tool to you that is not working well. Because according to the tool that you just pointed out, the Book of Eric is true. I'm telling you right now, I'm a sarcastic son of a bitch. I don't actually believe it to be true, but I can use this to point out the fault in your reasoning. Your reasoning has a
Well, let me ask you
gaping
this,
hole
you
in
make
it
a good
that can
point.
make anything in that book
See,
true.
okay, what did you want to ask?
Point, but let me ask you.
Sure.
Let me ask you this, because you're making a good point. I'm an open-minded guy.
That's
right?
good.
Now, would you say that the Old Testament, though, was written hundreds of years before Jesus walked the earth? Do you at least understand that?
I'm not convinced that Jesus walked the earth, but if he did, yes, the Old Testament was written prior to that.
And also, it doesn't matter. And I can tell you why, John, because there are texts that exist from before the Old Testament. And those texts have stories in them that none of us, both you and I will probably agree aren't true. So why would you say that the age of a story
It's
would
not.
make
He's
it
not
more
making.
likely
He's
to be
not
true?
making a case
No,
about
that's
the.
not
He's
the
not
point I'm
making a
making,
case
though.
about the age. He's making
Oh,
a
okay.
case that there are predictions that came before the events.
Oh, okay.
Right,
In the book.
right,
Yes.
right. From the book. That even the New Testament scholars, the people who wrote, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, referred to those old prophecies when explaining what happened to Jesus on the cross, for example, different things.
Yeah. Yes.
You went
there's-
back and referred back to those.
There's two problems here.
No.
Nobody is saying that that the things written in the Old Testament were not written before the New Testament. That's not the position. The problems is that the things in the Old Testament are subject to interpretation. The prophet Matthew, for the author of Matthew, because it wasn't Matthew, but the author of the book of Matthew was really fond of going back to prophecy, more so than any other gospel writer. And matter of fact,
Right, I know. Right.
Yeah. Matter of fact, he goes to things that tries to reference things in the Old Testament that aren't even in the Old Testament. That's how keen he is on prophecy. But it's a matter of interpretation. And so even if he's writing, these events came to pass as it was said in blah, 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 first of all, what he references may or may not be a prophecy. He may or may not have a correct interpretation of that. The Jews definitely don't think he does. Second of all, we have no way to confirm that the things that he claims happened to fulfill prophecy actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have is a statement that someone is interpreting as a prophecy, and then they're pointing to an event which we cannot confirm and claiming that event confirms prophecy. So what we would need is independent evidence from other sources, from contemporary sources, and we don't have anything like that. And so while you can take it as a matter of faith that the Bible's correct and that Jesus fulfilled prophecy, you don't actually have evidence for that, certainly not enough to warrant believing that this is the case. And when you go to Romans 1:20, which is for the things of God and the hiddenness and blah, 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 and so they are without excuse, that's 120, is that basically God has written it on everybody's heart, so they are without excuse. What Eric's pointing out is that he could write, there could be something in the verse of Eric that says, and all Christians secretly know that they are full of crap, they just deny it. And so when you call in to say that atheists really know there's a God, and you can tell this by our actions, and you started with the fact that we don't commit murder, what I immediately glean from that is that you are not aware that there are good reasons to not commit murder absent the belief in a God. And so you've constructed this model. We could do the same thing. We could say, I do not believe this, for the record. I want to make that clear. I was a sincere believer for 25 years, and I know people actually believe this
I didn't
stuff.
know that.
Yeah, I was studying to be a minister. I was a Southern Baptist, preached the word, blah, blah, blah. There are people who sincerely believe, but I could hold the position that none of those people actually believe, that what they really believe is something Dan Dennett pointed out, which is they believe in belief. They believe in the value of proclaiming their belief. They believe in the value of the community. They believe in the value of putting forward these values. And so they don't actually believe that there's a God. They just believe that it's important for them to act as if they believe. And I can actually, and this is the really scary thing, go to the Bible to back up that position. Because, there are many who call me Lord, Lord, who I don't know. And we all know that, even when I was in church, we knew that not only were other churches not actually in the Spirit, but we knew there were people sitting next to us in the pew that weren't. And I could argue that if you extend that analogy, it could work right down to you. If I have no way of telling who is or isn't a true believer, and I thought I was a believer and now I'm not, and I think maybe this person over here isn't, there's no way to show that anybody's a true believer, just like there's no way to show that I'm hungry. And so all of it becomes an exercise of faith, and not just faith as confidence, but faith in the Hebrews 11:1 sense of faith being the evidence for things hoped for and things unseen.
Well, let me ask you a question then. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was thinking one day about why there's so many different Christian sects if the message is considered. I mean, I get it. I understand all that.
Over
right?
1,000.
Yeah, thousands of different sects and Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons.
By the way,
you know.
as we're all standing up and being counted here, I was a born-again Christian, so...
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what I am. But then you have the
What
problem of
church?
now back to that Romans 1:20.
Yep.
We look at creation. I mean, it's true, though. I mean, you look around, there's so much complexity in the world.
But complexity doesn't tell you anything about design.
And hold on,
It just happened by itself.
Okay,
can you?
John,
Nobody says it happens by itself, and complexity isn't a hallmark of design.
and did that argument, is that what convinced you, John? Because I can sit down with you for 10 minutes. No, bullshit. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Maybe.
Are you telling me
this, though.
that somebody said, look at the trees, and you went, oh, shit, I'm a Christian now? That's what got you?
It's not just one thing, though.
So
I mean, this
because
is
if I address
got a
that...
table that has many stands that it stands on. It's just not one thing. That's one major thing, though, I will say.
Okay, so
You look at the world.
you and I
look
can
at-
sit down and we can actually go over why there is complexity in the world, and there's not a supernatural necessity. What was it, Laplace, who famously went to Napoleon after having published
That probably didn't happen, but yes, that's the...
Okay, well, I like the
Nothing
story,
else-
so we're going to use
It's
it.
got to be true, right?
What's that?
Well, it's in the
Nothing
book.
else would explain it to make sense. So why should I believe that? I mean, God is a perfect explanation.
No.
Hold on.
Hang on. I'm trying. I want to make sure I understand this. You're saying that because we don't have another explanation for the origin of the universe, that you might as well just accept that it's God?
Because it's the best explanation on the table.
Okay, but is it actually an explanation? Because explanations are offerings that say, we're going to take something we don't understand and we are going to increase our understanding of how it came to be by appealing to things we do understand. We explain the unknown in terms of the known. God has no explanatory power. It's essentially the equivalent of saying it's magic. It doesn't teach us anything about how it happened. We have no way to confirm it. We have no good evidence for it. And so when we look at the universe and we say, hey, I don't know how this happened, how is it different for you to say, I'm going to believe God did it, and for me to say, I'm going to believe it was universe creating pixies, and for Eric to just say it was magic? How do we distinguish between those three to tell which, because they're all viable for the same reason. They are all sufficient explanations for the universe, but we haven't demonstrated that any of them are necessary and sufficient or even possible. So we need a way to tell the difference between these three possible explanations: God, universe creating pixies, and magic. And we need to figure out which one of those three is more plausible.
Well, magic and pixies don't have books.
I do.
Sure they do. And by
if
the
it
way,
had
Bible
hold on. If I pulled out a pixie book, would you believe that pixies were more likely to be real, John?
are you going to buy into the Cottingley
The
fairies?
same historical value as the Bible. does it?
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I feel like
I didn't
want
hear
to.
what he said.
They say they have the same historical value as the Bible.
No, I said they don't. Do
Oh.
they?
That's the thing.
Well, okay, so again, how are you deciding what is true among those things? You need to actually have a tool to use.
Well, what is the Bible?
Well, I mean, when you see the beauty in the world, you see the complexity, you see all that stuff.
I see all that stuff.
It looks like a mind was behind it.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, yes, it does.
Not all
does?
the gods
Okay,
we've come up with here.
It may look like a mind was behind it, but that doesn't mean a mind was behind it. The fact that there may be the appearance of design is more about how little we understand about potential explanations than what the actual explanation is. So let me ask you a question I was asking a second ago. What is the Bible, John?
The Bible is 66 books written over thousands of years.
Sure, that's
by different
the
writers.
Protestant Bible. The Catholic Bible's got other stuff, and there's the differences. But who wrote the Bible?
I mean, of course, God used the hand of man.
No. I understand that you believe that God may have inspired the authors, but did man write the Bible?
Right.
what was the purpose, or what are the potential purposes of someone writing a book of the Bible?
To convey information.
Sure. And so, like, let's just take Genesis, okay? And actually, we'll just start with Genesis 1, which is historically attributed to Moses, even though we have no reason to think he existed or that he wrote the book, other than the book claims that he wrote the book, but it also includes his own death. So it doesn't matter. Somebody wrote Genesis. A human being wrote Genesis. Now, there are many ways that we could argue that this person came to write Genesis. Number one, God inspired someone to write down the events in Genesis. Number two, these are stories that people told to explain things they didn't understand, that were verbal traditions that eventually became codified and written down, that weren't actually inspired by God. How do I tell the difference between something that is actually, whether Genesis was inspired by God or whether Genesis was written by people who thought they were inspired by God but weren't, or Genesis was written by people who just wanted to codify these stories and didn't even know that or think that they were being inspired by God? How do we tell the difference between those?
We can compare. There's a set of literature out there that's probably arguably just as old, if not older, that you can compare the Bible to that, and you can see the human hand on it, so to speak.
I don't. So
You know,
first of all,
these,
what
myths
literature?
and stuff are a lot different.
Okay, so there are other old myths. How do you tell the difference between one old myth and one old myth that's actually true and inspired by God? How do you tell the difference?
Well, the Bible isn't as the Bible is more consistent with science.
No.
You look at the Genesis story.
The Genesis story is
outlines the
absolutely not.
creation.
The Genesis story is absolutely not consistent with science. The order of creation events does not match what we know to be the order of events from science.
Not only that, but the way that humanity came about has nothing to do with the Garden of Eden in the Bible. So tell me how that is consistent.
But I'm just saying.
I can
how do you
say that,
it's not
John. I
consistent
don't
with
just need to
science?
say that. I can point you to school. Go to school and
Do
open
that.
a book about
that's
it.
what I'm asking for. That's why I'm calling here. I want to see, I wanted to kind of, anybody can be big on claims, but you got to have evidence to back it up.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So that's the thing, John.
You can't just
That's
sit
the thing,
there,
John.
and this is the whole thing I wanted to.
This is the
hit
thing,
ball
John, is
head
that
about.
the evidence is not on your side. You keep making claims.
I disagree.
You've made claims that are demonstrably false. You say that the order of creation events in Genesis matches up with what science says. Did you not say that?
Yeah, and they are.
No, they don't, actually. So if you go to talkorigins.org to index.cc or index.cc, what you'll find is an index to creationist claims. And among that...
What was that website again? Say again, because I'm going to go
I'm
there.
going to tell you, talkorigins.org, okay? You can go and reference this here, but there's an index to creationist claims, one of them CB100. I'm pulling it up right now. That's on genetics. But in any case, it goes verse by verse through Genesis to show that the order of events, doesn't match up with science. For example, creating light before stars. So if you go through the order of events, it does not match up with what we know to be the case in science.
Really?
Really?
Yes. I can.
I'm going to have to go there and look. I have to go take a look. I'll take your word for it.
Well, you don't have to take my word for it.
You just for now. But if it doesn't add up, I'm going to call back and call you on it.
Call back. I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Damn it.
And I mean, yeah, dude, I appreciate that you're going to look into it. Don't take us on faith. Do the research. And on top of that, I would really want to see, because here's the thing. When we get to learn things about the world, we start by saying, I don't know, and I want to know, and then we investigate. What we don't do is we don't work backward from an ancient book written by Bronze Age goat herders over the last 2,000 plus years.
But that doesn't mean the goat herders can be wrong. This is the thing is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys weren't goat herders. I mean, the people, if you really do your
it doesn't. That's irrelevant. That's an ad hominem. The point is, how do you tell the difference between Genesis being inspired by God and Genesis being man's stories that people believe were inspired by God? How do you tell the difference? And one of the things that you said was, well, we can go back and compare it to other myths, and you can see whether or not there's man's hand in it. The thing is, for people who actually can study this, I see man's hand in all of it. I see the absurdity of claiming that we were all descendants of two actual physical people, one man, one woman, who were in a perfect garden, who were deceived by a serpent, who ate a fruit of a tree that gave them the knowledge of good and evil, and that they were banished from the garden, and this brought sin and death in the world. None of this is consistent with science. This is absolute myth. But when you talk about the order of creation events, in the book of Genesis, and I'm taking this straight from Talk Origins, which you can go look up as well. In the book of Genesis, there are 10 major events in this order: a beginning, a primitive earth and darkness. That's number 2. 3 is light. 4 is an expanse of an atmosphere. 5 is the large areas of dry land. 6 is plants. 7 is the sun, moon, and stars. 8 is sea monsters and flying creatures. 9 is wild and tame beasts and mammals. And 10 is man. But the real order of event, after I turn off my alarm to tell me it's time for the atheist experience, the real order of events is a beginning, then light, then the sun and stars, then the primitive earth, moon, and the atmosphere, then dry land, then sea creatures, then some land plants, then land creatures and more, then flying creatures and insects, and then mammals, which includes, well, then it goes on to first birds and then fruiting plants, and then man and other animals. So the order is not accurate.
Gotcha. Now, it does take light a long time to get to be visible. I mean, you got to keep that in mind. But I'll take a look at that. I mean, I'll see what you're talking about and give it a shot. I'm like I said before, I'm an open-minded guy. Now, I am a born-again Christian. I believe the Bible is literal. But, I want the truth.
I'm going to throw a wrench into this.
I've watched your show a few times, and a few things kind of pissed me off there, what you said. But, I wanted to call in and at least be man enough to...
I appreciate that. But
up with you.
I'm going to throw a wrench into this because here's the more important thing. What if the Genesis account had gotten the order exactly right, such that when we found out through science what the order was, it exactly lined up? What?
Well, I'd see that was very compelling evidence.
Evidence of what?
Of God authorship. Back then, they didn't know nothing about that stuff.
Okay. The fact that somebody got something right doesn't tell you how they got it right. How did you rule out a lucky guess? How did you rule out the same sort of loose inference that led to the eventual discovery by science? How did you rule out time machines? How did you rule out some other method by which they could have come by this information? The thing is, the fact that somebody got something right does not tell you how or why they got it right. Now, I understand that it might seem plausible to people to say, wow, these people couldn't have known this, and the best explanation is that there's a God. The problem is that God isn't a candidate explanation until you demonstrate that God should be a candidate explanation. And then once it is there, once it becomes a candidate explanation, you still have to draw a causal link. So if I also perform magic and mentalism, and I will make predictions and read people's minds. I can tell you I'm not actually making predictions, and I'm not actually reading people's minds in any supernatural sense, but I can give the appearance of that. So if I put a prediction in an envelope and set up a scenario that you are convinced that is completely fair, where you have a free choice, and you make a choice, and my prediction matches, what does that tell you about my prediction?
Right. I get your point.
Did God tell me?
Those are good questions. I never thought about a lot of these things.
It's one of the, and neither did I, by the way, for the 25 plus years that I was a believer, where I also thought I was a skeptic, where I understood I was doing magic back then too, and it didn't occur to me that the fact that two things, and this you'll get because you mentioned this earlier when you talked about MRI scans correlating with the experience of having thoughts. That correlation isn't causation, and so the fact that somebody might have got the order right doesn't necessarily tell you how they got it right. But when you get past that to the point that they got the order wrong, how likely is it that God could have incorrectly inspired someone? How likely is it that God could have gotten the order wrong? How likely is it that God was okay with slavery? How likely is it? I mean, you just go on and on. This isn't, Genesis 1 is just where we started. It's not remotely the only problem for this, not the least of which is that...
Well, one of the things I have a problem with the Bible is when, it's, God made laws about not eating shellfish and wearing mixed linens, but then didn't say nothing about that slavery. You brought that up. And
Oh, no.
I've always had a question about that, but
John,
maybe God's ways are just higher than mine, or maybe he's just
No.
to give glory to himself.
Now you are bending over backwards to the point of breaking your back, because it's not only
You're right.
But it's not
think about it.
It's not only the case that if God had said nothing about slavery, we would probably be able to bend over slightly more backward than I think we should. God, according to the Bible, does say things about slavery. Says it's okay. Specifically gives instructions on how to treat your slaves, how to beat your slaves, how to keep your Jewish slaves as slaves permanently. He doesn't just fail to address it. He gets it exactly backward. That's a big problem.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to understand sometimes. I understand.
Yep.
Well, maybe not hard to understand, but maybe hard to accept when your notions of morality are so much better than the one that's written in that book. And there's a whole lot. There's a whole lot that goes with that you're saddled with, man. If you're taking especially as literally true, that is a tough pill to swallow. And I would love, John.
Yep.
I would love for you to call back. I do have a couple other callers to take, but go ahead.
I'm going to leave you with one last thing, John, and I'm not even going to ask you to answer. Just think about this. So go back, since we'll just stick with Genesis 1, set aside the order of creation. You can look that up and sort that out. We have a situation where there are two people who are in the presence of God. God walks with them, so they know God exists. They are given specific instructions, but they do not yet understand. They don't have the knowledge of good and evil, right?
Right.
So how can they possibly understand that it would be wrong to disobey God if they don't understand good and evil?
Oh, yeah.
And if you were God,
you got me down that one.
and if you were God, could you possibly be just in punishing someone for violating a rule when they could not have possibly understood that it would be wrong to violate a rule? Think on that, and we'll hope to hear back from you.
All right, I'll think about it. That's a good one.
And I've got
a good one.
I got a few quick questions for you, John, just because I haven't talked to another born again Christian in a couple of years. So we believed in the Satanic Panic, that Satan was putting subliminal messages in music and in advertising. Does your church believe that?
Yeah, that's what's taught. I mean,
Okay.
my pastor said,
Can I ask you a couple other quick questions?
2 Thessalonians.
No, I don't, and I don't
know
need
if you're
to.
familiar with the verse, but
Hold on.
he basically
Hold on, John.
allows people to be misled in many ways.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a dick move by God.
It is. Also, in the church, I remember church wives saying that it is your wifely duty to give your husband sex, whether you want to or not. Is that something that's taught in your church, or was it just mine?
Not in my church, no.
Okay, that's
more,
good.
I think we're a little more liberal than that.
That's good. And then I guess the last question I'll have is somebody had come out as trans in my church. And not only was that person shunned, but everyone in their family was completely isolated and lost everything. Has anything like that happened in your church?
These things are considered deviations from God. I mean, but the thing about it is,
would you
Jesus
turn your
died
back?
for us.
Hold on.
Jesus died.
I really don't care about the character in your book. I'm asking you. I'm asking you, John. John, I'm asking you.
Yeah, and I accept them too. I think all humans are beautiful creations of God and have potential to be saved.
Well, John,
That's my view. I never look at people as quote unquote bad people. I'm a bad person.
John,
I've done a lot of bad things in my life.
John.
Okay, so I can't.
John, I hear you, and I think that you're capable of a whole lot more. And I can't wait to hear back from you, because I think that you have the potential to grow. And as long as you question, I think that you're always going to be welcome to call back. So you take care, all right, buddy?
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being so kind to me. I didn't even expect you guys to be. I hear so much about you guys.
Yes, dirty heathen atheists.
I want to hire you, John, to go out on YouTube, and every time somebody says I'm a nasty asshole, you can say, well, he wasn't quite that way with me.
There you go.
All right, take care, brother.
There you go. All right, brother.
All right.
Awesome. I see you have somebody that's into science now, so now we could talk about
That's me.
That's awesome.
If you want to talk about flat Earth, I'm an aerospace engineer, so I can tell you.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Yes.
what I want to talk about. That's
I need popcorn. So what did you want to
so
talk
here's so last week I called it about. I said that there was 2 proofs for intelligent design, and we talked about the DNA and everything. I don't want to get to that, but
Okay.
so the second proof, which is the absolute trump card, the absolute #1 proof that
Oh,
we are
man.
in an intelligently designed universe.
need to get-
I know you atheists have been seeking for this answer for a long time,
No, we don't.
and here it is.
No, the answer is that you are constantly looking for truth in things, because if you settle on one thing and you're wrong, you're less likely to dig in your heels, but you just want to, like we said just a minute
Yeah,
ago.
be okay with being wrong.
Yeah, know as many true things and as few false
Oh
things.
no, yeah, I
right?
love being wrong. Believe me.
Yeah. So you go right ahead. What is your ultimate thing? Go ahead.
Okay, so that we are not on a ball that's spinning 1,000 miles an hour, that's going around the sun 66,600 miles an hour, going around the galaxy 550,000 miles an hour, and the galaxy going through the universe at 1.5 million miles an hour. Absolutely just absurd.
I
the Earth is
highly
operationally
suggest.
and functionally flat.
I highly suggest there's a amazing Monty Python song that does that. But this is so in your ballpark, EJ. I don't even want.
Well, I'm waiting to hear what the proof is.
Okay, so the proof that we're not on a spinning ball, #1, is that water cannot conform to the exterior of a shape. You cannot do an experiment to make water go around any shape and stay there, like the way that the water of the Earth is, excuse me, going around the Earth, right? And then they say, oh, gravity. Okay, we should get into gravity. It's absolutely absurd. Also, how many things that gravity does magically, it does like a million different things. And it's all this one force that does all of these things. But if you disprove that one thing, that means that everything that you believe about the entire universe is wrong.
Well,
And we need a new cosmology.
First of all, gravity is measurable. We have a lot of evidence that gravity exists. There are a lot of different ways that we can prove that gravity exists. In regards to the whole water conforming to a ball thing, I think the big problem that you're having is that it's really difficult to think about things in 3D, because the force of gravity is due to the massiveness of an object. So, I have gravity, Eric has gravity, you have gravity, but because we're such small objects, our gravity is basically negligible. It doesn't really do anything.
Well,
but when you get a lot of mass
you should
in
tell
one
that to
place,
Cavendish.
sorry?
They say you should tell that to Cavendish, because Cavendish actually, when he did that test, which is the only test in existence to prove, quote unquote, prove that one object can attract another object by virtue of its mass alone,
Victor?
he was so sure that the test was so sensitive. The test was so sensitive that when he went to go take the measurements, he took the measurements outside of the barn, 100 feet away, with a telescope, because he didn't want his own gravity to interfere with the test. So if you're saying that your gravity is so small that it'll never affect anything, you should tell it to Cavendish.
I mean, I can't speak to, I can't say I'm familiar with Cavendish, but whenever
Well,
that...
you should.
I actually can.
That's amazing.
Victor.
I don't know who Cavendish is.
Yeah,
That's
Victor.
The only, experiment.
Victor, hello. You do know that the Cavendish experiment has been replicated by students every year at major universities
No, not
for
accurately, no.
many,
No,
many,
no,
many,
no,
many,
no,
many,
no,
many
no,
years.
no,
It has been replicated so many times that it's almost a rite of passage at some colleges to perform the Cavendish experiment. You do know that, right?
Okay, so let's say that this is true. Let's say that the Cavendish experiment is true. So gravity is.
Whoa, hold on. So, if are we sure about that? Are you good there?
I'm just gonna play devil's advocate.
You're playing devil's advocate? Okay, so what I suggest before you play devil's advocate is that you go to a university and talk to somebody. Because
I've seen
one,
all the experiments on YouTube. I've seen them do it. And,
go
and
to a
I
university,
can prove that it's some other force.
talk to somebody, and then you get to decide whether or not you're wrong or the entire world is against you in some major conspiracy.
Well, before we make the appeal to popular belief, something that might help with visualizing how gravity works in a more 2D version is looking up experiments where they take an elastic sheet and you put like a really heavy, like a ball in the elastic sheet, and then you can roll marbles, and the marble will actually orbit the ball as it kind of like
No, it
spirals
doesn't.
in. And that's a really
No,
good...
it doesn't.
Yes, it does. There are videos of
No,
this.
it doesn't. No, it goes directly to the center.
No. If you give it,
it'll go around a little bit. It'll go
If you
around
give it a
little bit,
velocity.
and then it always goes towards the center.
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, it spirals in towards the center. That's how gravity works. It's an attractive force. And if you don't give it a velocity, it does go straight in. And that's exactly how gravity works, except in 3D. So when you have a mass, it essentially... Space-time is a complicated thing, and we could get into quantum mechanics, and we could get into relativity and general relativity and special relativity. But frankly, I don't want to have that conversation because that's one that requires several degrees to talk about.
When is Mercury going to get sucked into the sun? And if it's been orbiting around the sun for like billions of years, when is it ever going to go towards into the sun? If the sun is so massive, the sun is a million times the volume of Earth. You could put a million Earths inside the sun. So that should just mean that Mercury should just make a straight beeline right into the sun. How come it's just going around in a circle? I mean, that makes absolutely no sense.
I can answer that. So I took a class last semester called Spacecraft Dynamics. I'm currently in a class this semester called Applied Orbital Mechanics. And the way that it works is if you have something that is very gravitationally, powerful because it's very massive, you have an orbit. The way that an orbit works is the object is moving. And so you can almost think of it as it's falling towards the object, but it's falling sideways. So it's just constantly kind of falling in towards the object, but it's going around because it has that velocity that's making it go that way. And so it can be a little bit difficult to visualize, but those forces and the energy required to maintain that orbit can be calculated really precisely. Like Mercury is going the velocity that it needs to go to not get sucked into the sun. But fun fact, the moon actually is getting sucked in towards the Earth. Every year it moves a couple centimeters closer because it's so far away that it'll be a really, really, really long time before the moon gets close enough to actually be, drawn into the Earth's gravity. But it is moving closer, and that's something that we can measure.
Wouldn't that? Yeah, but okay. So now the Earth is going around the sun, right? So if the Earth is going around the sun, so you do understand that somehow, some way in the wintertime, it's actually closer towards the sun. It's 3 million miles closer.
Yeah, it's in an elliptical orbit,
actually.
Yeah.
So when the Earth is going closer towards the sun, how come the moon doesn't get pulled more towards the sun when it's 3 million miles closer towards it?
Well, it does. I mean, gravitational forces act on everything. It does have an effect, and in fact, those are things that you can account for in measuring orbits, and even in the orbit of a spacecraft, like the class that I'm taking right now, part of what we have to do is we have to account for the perturbations in the orbit caused by the sun's gravity versus the moon's gravity versus the Earth's gravity versus the shape of the Earth. Just even the fact that the Earth is not a perfect sphere affects the way that an orbit will move, and the orbit parameters will actually change over time because of the different gravitational effects of the different bodies in the solar system. And I mean, a lot of this is things that are measurable and things that we do account for in terms of measuring orbits and creating orbits and calculating the exact amount of fuel you would need to get to a certain orbit and the exact amount of velocity that you would need to leave one orbit and get to a different orbit. And these are all things that are, if you take a class on orbital mechanics, you'll actually learn about it. And it's really fascinating. I mean, I could talk about it all day. I'm sure I'm boring you with talk about orbit mechanics.
Yeah,
but,
I just think that if you have something that has such an enormous amount of gravitational force, and then you have something as small as the moon, and then you have the Earth that goes 3 million miles closer towards the sun, it's going to throw off the orbital mechanics of the moon and the Earth relationship, and it's just going to. There's no way. There is absolutely no way. The Earth has been doing this. Excuse me. Earth has been doing this orbit around the Earth for 4.5 billion years.
Victor.
What's interesting about that is that the gravitational force is actually not a particularly strong one. The gravitational. I
ain't even mad, bro. Go ahead.
Cavendish proved that it exists with just an object that's only 260 times heavier than another object.
Gravity does exist. It's just not a particularly strong force in terms of other forces that exist in the universe. Magnetism is also a fairly weak force. It has an inverse square relationship to the distance from the object. And so because you have that inverse square relationship, as you get further and further from an object, the gravity force gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And because we're so far away from the sun, yes, its gravity is strong. It's very, very massive. But 3 million miles over, however many dozens, hundreds of millions of miles we are from the sun, 3 million miles is actually not a huge difference in terms of that inverse square relationship and the strength of the gravitational force.
It's actually like 3 or 4% closer. To me, that's a pretty large margin.
It's not a large margin when you have an inverse square relationship with the force.
You have all these super complex orbital mechanics, inverse square law. Like, isn't it more in accordance with Occam's razor to just be like, the sun is just orbiting over my head because that's how I observe it, right? Then when you go outside, right, and I look straight up in the air.
But Occam's razor applies to situations where the other options aren't viable, whereas these things are measurable. I'm in a class right now. My professor for this class, his whole life is he does this kind of orbital mechanics. He works for a bunch of different organizations that he's done these calculations for, and they launch satellites, and you have to do all of these complex calculations in order to make sure the orbit is where you need it to be to accomplish what you need it to accomplish. Like satellites that provide your internet, they have to be in a particular orbit, otherwise it's not actually going to function, and you need to know where that satellite is.
Don't exist.
Satellites don't exist.
Satellites is absolutely ridiculous.
Then how are you calling us right now?
No, there's no such thing as satellites. So if a grain of sand hits a satellite, the satellite is completely destroyed. It's going at 17,500 miles an hour, and we have, 30,000 satellites in the sky? How is it that not one of these satellites ever gets hit by something?
They absolutely do get hit by things.
25 years or something,
Victor?
and the ISS never gets hit by anything, and it never moves its orbit.
Victor, when you make a statement and the other person wants to respond, you need to let them respond, because you're saying a thing and then you're blasting off with more things, and we can't respond to any of those things.
Also, when you say a statement, you kind of need to back it up with evidence. Like, do you have a study that shows, well, satellites don't actually exist? Because I have a lot of evidence in my classes that satellites do exist.
It's just simple logic. If you have 30,000 satellites in there, if one of these satellites gets hit by something the size of a grain of sand going at 17,500 miles an hour, that satellite will be absolutely destroyed.
Actually, satellites do get hit by things all the time.
It's going to hit it at such a force that it's going to pull off your orbital mechanic of it, and there's no way that you're going to be able to correct the orbit of the satellite, because you're in a vacuum, right? And you can't steer it. It's not like you have rudders.
These are all things. These are things you can account for.
So once you get hit, that's it. It's over.
Well, okay. First of all, responding to your first point, space debris is a real concern. There's a whole lot of there are governmental organizations whose entire job is to track space debris. There are companies like SpaceX or whatever, they have to track space debris because you need to know where it is. And we know the orbits that a lot of space debris exists in, but you need to know where space debris is, because it will actually damage satellites. Like you said, satellites do get damaged. I mean, there are satellites that get damaged, and we have to send up other satellites to repair them.
That's ridiculous. How can you believe this? It's science.
I believe it because I'm studying it, and I know the science behind it.
Religion.
And because Victor,
Victor,
EJ is not appealing to personal incredulity, but wants to actually learn the thing. EJ is not saying, hold on. EJ is not saying, I can't understand it, therefore it's not true. And up until this point, that does sound pretty much like what you're saying. So
no, I'm saying that it's impossible. There's no way that these things. Listen, as you're saying the things that you believe, see the things with like.
Well, the difference here is that it's not something that I believe. It's something that I know to be true.
When you're actually explaining these things to someone like me, and then you start realizing how ridiculous this is, you start laughing, because you just said, "Oh, well, what the
I'm actually laughing at what you're saying,
we have to send up other satellites to fix them." This is science fiction. This is not true. Okay? How can you have a satellite up there and then it gets hit by something, and then you send up another satellite going 17,500 miles an hour to go and fix it? Come on, what are you joking?
Because we can calculate the necessary thrust that you need to get it into the atmosphere, and you can calculate the amount of fuel that you need to produce the thrust to get into the orbit that you need. Like, I know I could sit here and calculate, okay, this is the velocity that I need to be in this exact orbit, and this is the velocity that I'll need to have in order to catch up to this particular satellite. I mean, there's entire fields dedicated to how do I go from the orbit that I'm in to the orbit that I want to be in? How do I catch up to a spacecraft that I want to be, next to? It's entire complex fields of orbital mechanics that you could take, 7, 8, 9, 10 classes on it and still, have more to learn. And it's really fascinating because there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so The ISS has been up there for, 20 years, never gets hit by anything.
It absolutely does get hit by things. Space debris is a big issue.
If the ISS gets hit by something, then the orbit of the object, there's no way you can correct the orbit of the ISS.
That's patently untrue.
Yeah. So
How is that untrue?
So
Because, go ahead.
no, that's all right. Find evidence to back up your assertions. Email it to us. Email it to us, Victor.
To refute what you believe. That would
Whoa, you're so
dismissed without
quick.
evidence.
Well,
Yeah, there's evidence. You're just not willing to look it up.
yeah, I mean,
and we're not responsible for forcing you.
We understand how forces function. Like, I can calculate the torque that would be applied to the ISS by space debris impacting it if I know the mass and the velocity of the debris that hits it.
Right, but just because you can do a mathematical equation to prove something, that doesn't mean that it's real. I could do a mathematical equation right now.
I can do that mathematical equation, and then
I can make the Drake equation 2.0 and say that the dragons created the universe 7 trillion years ago, and I'd be like, oh, since I created the mathematical equation, you can't say that I'm wrong. I just made this equation. It makes all sense in the world, and I just proved that dragons created the universe.
You brought up Occam's razor earlier, so let me bring up an Occam's razor to you. What's more likely, that we can calculate these things and then we can measure them to be true, and we can check our calculations and that they're accurate, and we can check that, well, we can observe this satellite through a telescope, like we can check that these things are true, or there's a huge governmental conspiracy that says that these things are true, even though there's not,
No, you just said that you could see a satellite and a telescope?
Absolutely. You need the right telescope, and you need to know exactly its position in the sky that you were looking for. You can look. You can see the ISS.
Heathen's website or something like that. I'll check it.
Wonderful idea. For those of you who are watching, hop onto the Facebook, Talk Heathen Facebook, and please, just demonstrate to him. Victor,
you can actually see the ISS.
Listen, I'll disprove satellites right now. If it's so easy to prove that satellites exist, you just said right now that you could use a telescope, a special telescope, and you could see satellites. So that must mean that there must be thousands or millions of images of satellites online, right? So let's go to Google right now. Let's.
The University of Google.
Go on Google right now.
Here, I have a fun
satellite.
Victor, listen, Victor. I have a fun experiment for you. Okay. There's a website where you can look up exactly when the ISS will be passing overhead and be visible. I can't remember the website off the top of my head, but you can find it pretty easily. And it's literally just, it will tell you which satellites would be passing overhead. You can look up, in this time period, when will the ISS be visible? And it's generally visible close to sunrise or close to sunset, because you can see it kind of like in the, it's hard to describe exactly where you can look up exactly where it will be located, the latitude and longitude. And you can see that with the naked eye. You don't even need a telescope to see the ISS.
Exactly.
So go look up, Victor, I have homework for you. I have homework for you.
Let's pause right there.
I have homework for you.
Right there. You just
look up.
Listen.
Look up when the ISS will be passing overhead.
Yeah. Victor, you're on hold.
Yeah, look up when the ISS will be passing overhead, and then get outside at that time and look for it. Because if you look hard enough, you will see it. The ISS is visible to the naked eye.
Yeah. And Victor, this is not your show. So we tell you, and you can be good with it or not. That's fine. But when we have something to say and you won't let them talk, then you get put on hold. So I'm going to take you off of hold. You still there?
That you just made. Hello?
Were you talking so much that you didn't know I put you on hold and talked to you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, okay. Call back when you can do that. All right.
Ooh.
So.
All right, that was fun. I got my heart rate up. Yeah.
So you're amazing. You are so amazing.
Listen, I'm an aerospace engineer, baby. You can tell me that Earth
I need
is
a
flat.
show for you, and I need to open for you, and I'm gonna be like, holy crap, I knew EJ back in the day.
Orbital mechanics.
Do it. Oh my gosh, that is.
Listen, orbital mechanics and spacecraft dynamics were my favorite classes. So I'll talk to you all day about this. I took an exam last week on this stuff, so come on.
Come on. I am so glad that people as smart as you exist, because that just oh man, we would be screwed as a species if everybody was where I'm at. So I'm so glad that other people can do the hard work there, because man, that made my day. That made my day.
We want the truth. So watch Truth Wanted live, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Call 512-991-9242 or visit tiny.cc/call TW.